And I went through a wave of emotions with Bali. Like I went up and down and all around. And first I was extremely disappointed. First I was like, okay, there is a lot of sort of what at the time I called it like lifestyle colonialization. And what now I guess it's just like extreme gentrification. There's just so much stuff around Canggu in that area that's just like for Westerners, and like it's made by Westerners and it's run by Westerners and the customers are Westerners and the servers are the locals. And that is an incredibly uncomfortable place to be. And I was like, it's kind of now or never. Like I was 23 at that point and I was like, it's now or never. Like just go. I had a little bit saved up, nothing crazy. It was like a couple of grand. It wasn't like stacks and stacks, you know what I mean? Enough to like where I felt comfortable to go off for like a couple of months. If you're a company and you're hiring developers and you're hiring developers from the Philippines, you're going to pay them a Filipino wage, which is going to be much less than what you're going to pay a New York-based developer, right? I think this needs to change. I even had one guy message me, a guy that I met in a hostel on one night, like almost a year ago now, but then it was like maybe 5 months prior. He DM'd me and he was like, I was planning a big trip this year and I was planning to go to Southeast Asia. But literally because of your stories over the last few days, I've changed my ticket to Argentina. And I was like, oh, wow.
Hello and welcome to the Winging It Travel podcast with me, James Hammond. Personally, I have been to 50 countries. I've met so many people on my travels that I want to bring on this podcast and get their story on record. I have plenty of tips and stories to share with you as well. Are you a backpacker or a traveller or gap year student or simply someone who loves to travel? Then this is the podcast for you. Throughout the weeks and months, you'll get many guests and solo episodes where I try to cover all range of subjects within travel. This is a casual and informative travel podcast to inspire you to travel in the future. Do you fancy some bonus content with this episode? Then fear not. If you start to my Patreon today, by going on to www.patreon.com/Winging It Travel Podcast, then you'll find these extra features every week for Monday and Friday's episode. One bonus episode every month, some ad-free content, some early access to episodes, the exclusive added Travel Must Have feature on every episode, patron shout out, some ad hoc bonus episodes. You'll get a copy of my digital travel planner, which is available on Etsy, and you'll get my monthly Winging It Travel Podcast magazine. If this takes your fancy, you can sign up for £4, $7.50 Canadian, $6 US a month, and I really thank you for supporting the podcast. Hope you enjoy the podcast. Thanks for listening and supporting this, and I'll see you soon. Cheers, James. Let's get into the episode. Hello and welcome to this week's episode where I'm joined by Jetsetter Julia, who hosts a podcast called Belonging Abroad and also is a full-time traveller as we speak. Today we're going to talk about Julia's recent experience in Indonesia, which will cover maybe Bali and Java and other places. I'm keen to hear about how full-time travel is going, some updates on her podcast, and delve into some other personal travel. Welcome to the show, Julia. How are you doing?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Not too bad. So tell listeners, where are you right now?
At the moment, I'm at my sister's house in Edinburgh. And tonight, actually, I'm getting an overnight bus back down to London. So I've got that to look forward to.
How long is that? Is it 6 hours or something?
The overnight buses are quicker. They're about 8 hours.
Yeah.
The bus I took on the way up was over the daytime, and that was 10 hours.
Bloody hell. Do you sleep on buses?
I can, yes.
Okay, relief.
Not well, but I can.
I talked to someone yesterday about this, about in the old days, younger days, I would get an overnight bus. But in the modern day, because I've been older, I'm like, nah, because I don't sleep. It's a waste of the day after. So I just accept that that day is a travel day.
Yeah, it is a bit of a risk because I personally never know when I get on if I'll be able to sleep, how well I'm going to sleep. Like, I feel like if I get a window seat, I can sleep much better.
Yeah.
But I know it's like hotly debated whether window or aisle is better because it's like you can get up to pee whenever you want if you're in the aisle.
Yeah.
But when you're by the window, you can lean on the window and sleep on it. So I don't know. They both have their pros and cons. But honestly, like the train was just way too expensive. Like, I don't know what's going on with the UK trains, but
The worst in Europe. The worst in Europe. One, they are the worst in terms of like actual trains, and two, they're just so expensive.
they're so expensive. Yeah, but even the bus is expensive. I mean, I went to university in Edinburgh and I would always go down to London to see my parents, like, you know, during the breaks and stuff. And I would always go by bus because I was a broke student. But like you could get a return for like £15.
Yeah.
I got this return for £50. Like,
Yeah.
what? Yeah. And I'm not that old. This was not that long ago.
Yeah, I feel your pain. I've been booking trains and buses like recently actually for my trip back in December, which is, I know is prime time because of Christmas. But still, like, I'm going from Stansted, which is and London Airport to
Oh,
Norwich. It's not
abysmal.
even that far, hour and a half, 2 hours. And the train's like £30. I'm like, oh, if that was like
Oh.
anywhere in Europe, like that distance, it'd be like £8 or something, or like
I mean,
five.
that probably is the same as your flight into Stansted from wherever you're coming from.
So my flight to Greece from London to Athens is cheaper than my train from London Airport to Norwich.
That's it. That's it.
Why
Ugh.
is that even a thing?
My mom's side of the family is from Serbia, so we go to Serbia quite a lot to see like relatives, extended family, etc. And so of course we fly Wizz Air, or I do.
Oh,
My
that's who
mom.
I booked with. Yeah.
All right, yeah. I
Is
mean,
it
my mom
good?
is like, I would rather pay more and go from Heathrow, but I'm like cheap to my core, so I'm like, nope, Wizz Air for
Yeah.
me. And they go from Luton, and Luton
Yes.
is so annoying to get to. But I recently found this is probably not news to a lot of people, but I know there used to be like an easy bus which could like take you for like £2
Oh,
from
wow.
wherever in London to like these airports like Stansted and Luton.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
They are not £2 anymore. I looked, it was like £12, £15. I was like, what is going on? And then I found National Express
Yeah.
and they were £7. So it's like, okay, still more, but doable. And like, yeah. And it's actually quite good because from Baker Street, it's only an hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah. That's where I fly from, Luton, because I'm with Wizz Air.
Yeah.
But Luton's a bit of a
Mhm.
nightmare to get to. You're right. It's an awkward
It
place.
is. And it's so confusing because there's like Luton Airport Parkway, Luton Airport, and then like Luton City, like three different train stations. And it's your first time. I made the mistake of like the first time I ever flew from Luton, I didn't realize there was three. Because why would you? You see Luton and you're like, oh, that must be for the airport too. And
Yeah.
then, or maybe I'm just an idiot. I don't know if most people are like, no, clearly it's the Luton Airport. And it's not even Luton Airport. It's Luton Airport Parkway. I think that is the station. I actually still to this day get them confused. And even once you get out of that train station, you have to take a shuttle to the
Yeah.
airport. And it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it's just such a faff. And you're like, what? Ugh,
And I think any
sucks.
foreigner coming in, they see like London, right? London Luton.
Yeah.
Oh, it's London, but it's not in London. It's like way
You
out of
got about two
London.
hours to go, mate.
Yeah. They're cheeky with that.
But we still keep coming back, don't we? They're
Yeah, we
still
do.
luring back for those cheap flights. They're still like, yep. And you still go.
If Wizz
So I
Air
do.
are like £20 to get to Greece, I'm all over it.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
it.
I've not flown with Wizz Air before, so it's a new airline I'm ticking off. Are they good? Are they all right?
Exciting. I'm a fan of the pink and purple branding. I feel like those are
Okay.
very unconventional colors to have on a brand.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see it. But like, I mean, they're just really the same as any other um budget airline, really.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah.
And Edinburgh, what a
Mm,
place. One of my favourite places. A lot of people's favourite places in the UK. How do you find it?
I love Edinburgh. Every time I step off the bus or train or whatever to get into Edinburgh, I always just get filled with joy. Like I love
Mm,
this place. I lived here for 3 years when I was a student, and then I went and I did my master's in Newcastle, which is not far away. So, and my sister had started her first year when I moved to Newcastle, so she was up here,
yeah.
and so I would come to Edinburgh from Newcastle. It's like an hour and a half on the train. And I would just come up every other week, maybe maximum. So I was still I had like one foot in Newcastle and one foot in Edinburgh still. And then I dated a guy from Edinburgh for a long time after that. So I was up here a lot for
Mm,
that reason. So I just have like multiple ties to this place. And yeah, we're not together anymore, but my sister still lives here. And it's just wonderful. Every time I come here, I just get so excited. The architecture is just beautiful. The people are so friendly and funny and nice. And like, I don't know, it's just such a walkable city and it's so dense with activities of all varieties. And obviously like the nature. I mean, you got the crags, you've got Arthur's Seat, you've got Calton Hill and like the
yeah.
Big Meadows Park in the middle of the city. And it's stunning. I love it.
I think it actually epitomises Scotland as a whole. Stunning country, right? Especially in the northern parts when you go out to the Outer Hebrides or the 500 road at the top. I think you're going to see
Mm.
some pretty awesome nature up there.
Yes, I actually did that, the NC 500. I
Yeah.
did that last year with some friends. It was beautiful.
Yeah. Was that a camper van?
No,
No?
everyone that we ran into was a camper van. It was five of us that went, and three of us went in a car, and two went on a motorbike.
Oh,
Um,
motorbike. Awesome. Yeah.
yeah, and we tag teamed who was on the back of the motorbike. So I did a stretch on the back of this bike. It was so cool, this big 600cc like massive thing, and it was so much fun. Rainbows everywhere because in Scotland it's always drizzling. But the
Yeah.
sun was also out, so there was rainbows everywhere, and just like these beautiful brown mountains, and like I don't know, it was really great. Ullapool was fantastic. I don't know if you've been to
No.
Ullapool.
No.
That for me was the most beautiful of all the
Okay.
places we saw personally.
Right. Yeah, I watched a video the other day of the Outer Hebrides. I saw someone walk the Hebridean Way, which goes from like bottom to
Mm,
the top of the Hebrides. Just looks
mhm,
incredible. I
mm.
think he tented it, so he carried his tent. But yeah, real cool out there. And I think criminally not explored hardly any of Scotland apart from Edinburgh. Yeah.
Yeah. And the cool thing too is that you can wild camp in Scotland. You're allowed to
Yeah.
just like pitch it
Yeah. Yeah.
wherever, which
Yeah.
you're not in England and Wales, I believe. So that makes exploring so much more accessible and like
Yeah.
nicer and cheaper and easier if you're willing to sleep in a tent. So yeah, definitely. I haven't done as much hiking around here as I'd like to,
Mm.
sadly.
But always time.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
you have to
Yeah.
time it right. Like I say, Scotland does rain. So you probably have to do
Yeah,
like height of summer to alleviate that problem.
at risk, yeah.
If you're going at
Which would also be
March.
nice because then the sun also goes down at like 11 p.m. So you've got
Yeah.
long,
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
you don't have to rush to camp by 5 p.m. to set up, because it'll be dark because you've got all the time in the world.
Yeah. On my list, the ever-growing list. So you are traveling full time as we speak.
Yes. Hmm.
And I'm gonna start just before that. Where did your interest in travel grow from an early age? Was it always there, or was it something that grew over time?
I think I wasn't conscious of it being an interest when I was really young. Like I was lucky enough that I have been traveling since I was really little.
Yeah.
Not on any kind of exciting adventures or anything, but just like, I'm from like a mixed background. My mom's Serbian and my dad's Greek. And we lived in the US when I was a little kid, which is why I have this accent. But then or I was born in London and then we moved to
Yeah.
the US. We were there for 10 years and then came back to the UK. And I finished my like middle school and high school in the UK. I went to university in Scotland. Like, so I've spent more time in the UK than in the US.
Okay.
But because of this accent, people peg me as American straight away. And I have to be like, actually, kind of
It's-
not really. It's
yeah,
complicated.
it's not strong.
Um,
I don't think American
no.
tinge. I don't think it's like that
Okay.
strong.
Yeah, it's funny because I get different feedback from different people. Some people are like, "Oh, you are so American," and some people are like, "I can't place your accent. Where are you from?" I don't know. But yeah, so because I have this like mixed background, we spent every summer between school years going over to Serbia and Greece to see relatives, and we would spend the whole summer over there and then come back to the US for school.
Mm.
And obviously that's like a super like privileged position to be in, but yeah, so I guess that kind of from a very young age like normalized airports, travel, crossing seas. And then like obviously there was like the occasional school trip as I got older, like hopping over to France or whatever to see some things, or
Mm.
Spain or whatever from the UK when I was a bit older and living there. And like again, a total privilege. I know that that's not something that everyone can experience, so that's definitely something very lucky. But I think that's kind of where it started, at least like normalizing this kind of movement. My real interest for travel came, and I don't know where I found this. I can't remember. I wish I did, but I found this Facebook group when I think I was about 16, and it was called Nomads: A Life of Free Travel. And I just like slid into this group and I was like, what's going on? It was all these people who just like were on the road full time. They didn't have conventional jobs. They didn't live
Yeah.
conventional lives. And they were just, for them, just being free to roam was the most important thing that they held dear. And they just found ways to make it work, whether that
Mm.
was like hitchhiking around or whether that was we are walking from, I don't know, Portugal to Mongolia. Like no, but crazy things like this,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
people writing like travel. It was basically like travel journalism in this group of people who were just living, I guess, really like alternatively. And my eyes just went wide and I was like, whoa, this is an option. Cause I was very much on this, get good grades, go to good university,
Yeah.
get a grad
Classic.
pipeline, and I never really wanted that, but I
No,
didn't really
same. Yeah.
I didn't understand that there were other options available. Like the way it looked to me was just, oh, but that's just what everyone does. So
Yeah.
this was my first foray into like popping that bubble and being like, oh no, you can do other stuff. And from then that's where I learned what a digital nomad was. That's where I learned a lot about like the possibilities regarding travel. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. Like, this is how I want to live. So that's where it started.
What year was that?
That would have been maybe 2012, 2011, 2012.
Yeah, I traveled like 2013, and that did open my eyes, not only from a travel perspective in terms of like different cultures and stuff, but also I met so many people doing the same thing, which is great. I was like, you kind of think, am I the only one doing it? No, there's other people doing it. But also around 2013, 14, laptops, phones became much, much better. People
Yeah,
started to take laptops and work on them, and like, I just didn't click quick enough for me personally, like, until like it's kind of clicked now, which is like nearly 10 years later, which is fine, better late than never. But I kind of wish back
totally.
in the early days, I kind of like was like you and was like kind of switched on, like, if I do that, I can do that full time. No regrets, but like I should have switched on earlier. I talked about this with someone else called Sondre the other day who set up a company.
Oh, yes, from SafetyWing?
SafetyWing, yeah, he came on the podcast and
Yes.
done an interview. So
Mhm.
he said in those days, like we're same age roughly, and he's like, yeah, that's when it started to really turn, and he had loads of ideas about digital nomad. But
Yeah.
some people switched on, some people not.
I just remember watching like YouTube videos of people being like, how I live as a digital nomad in Chiang
Yeah.
Mai, like back in 2013 and stuff. And just being like, that's going to be me. That's going to be me. I was like wrapping up high school and I was like, that's going to be me 100%.
Yeah. And it's a weird because the mentality is like, when I was traveling at that point, is like, well, no, of course you need a job. So like I would travel 6 months,
Right.
I'd get to Australia, I've got a year to get a job and save money and I'll go again. The thought concept of that you can do it full time, not doing that never entered my mind. And it wasn't until
Right.
years later I started to realise, oh shit, people are doing this full time and not doing the conventional shitty job that everyone else does. It's an interesting concept.
Yeah, it really opened my eyes because I'm like, oh, you don't have to live the way that everyone's telling you to live.
Yes.
This notion of like, oh, but I have to have a stable job. Oh, but I have to have a home. Oh, but this, that. It's like, you don't though. Like, why do you? Some people have it and they love it, and that's fine. That's 100%
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
going to shame anyone's lifestyle. But it's just like, I was that kid who was always like, well, okay, but why though? Like for everything, like, oh, but we have to live this way. Oh, but why though?
Mm.
And I was always dissatisfied with the answers because when you push enough on the why, there's nothing behind it.
There's nothing behind it. Yeah, yeah.
No one gave me a good enough answer to my why where I was like, oh, okay, I guess you're right. So I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to keep going. I'm very stubborn and headstrong just generally. And I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm just going to go with this. And I'm 16, so I know everything and it's going to work. So
Yeah, it's hard to explain to people. When I was in school, so this is like early 2000s, school was never interesting for me. But luckily I had an outlet in music. So I was, playing my guitar every day. That was my sole outlet. And I get to go for half an hour every week to do a guitar lesson and miss a school lesson, which was like a brilliant thing to do. Right? I can go and tell the teacher, no, I've got a guitar lesson, I've got to go. I would rock up to school like normal classes, not be interested and just wing it, hence the time of the podcast, and just like do the grades. So I said to people, well, the grades that you see that I've got, that is what I knew. Like no revision, nothing at all. So I got an A in history in GCSE, and that's because I was interested in history slightly. So I'd done my own reading, not like what the teachers told me, and that kind of got me through to that grade. But I got a D in German, just wasn't interested in learning German. Got C's in science. I just done the bare minimum. So like that was what I've got. But the main thing was music. And now with travel, the main question is, oh yeah, what about the house that you want? I'm like, well, recently, right now, with houses, because of the inflation and interest rates, you've got to fork out extra money now if you're not on a fixed rate mortgage for like, I don't know, $600 to £1,000 extra a month because your mortgage going up, not your choice. But they always justify it because the house, right? So the house is an interesting one. I get asked that all the time. Now I'd rather just rent and have the opportunity to maybe pop to Greece for 2 weeks, or fuck it, I'm going to go to Australia for 2 weeks and work remotely there or something. So interesting conversations.
Or I mean, accommodation is something that I would dub myself like kind of the queen of accommodation, because I have figured out how to live very, very cheap when I'm on the road. Like I don't have a lease anywhere. I don't own any property, personally. I just kind of treat it as like wherever I go next. Okay, if I'm staying for a while, maybe I rent something, but that rarely happens. Like I generally tend to use like services like house sitting or like couch surfing, or I stay with friends or with friends of friends. And sometimes, actually, this is a great one that kind of happened by accident. I was recently in Australia and I was chatting with a friend from Portugal, just randomly, just like catching up on life. Hey, dude, thought of you. It's been a minute. How are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And then he was like, yeah, good. How are you? Where are you? And I said, oh, I'm heading to Australia next week. And he was like, oh, where? And I said, Melbourne. And he was like, no way. One of my best friends lives in Melbourne. Hang on, maybe you can stay with him. Let me ask him. I didn't know. I had no intention of asking for anything. So my biggest piece of advice now to everyone is like, tell your friends where you're going, because you never know who they know where you might be going. And I ended up staying with this friend of his for like 5 or 6 days in this high rise with the most epic view, like floor to ceiling windows, like for free for like 6 days. And we had a blast. So yeah, about accommodation,
that's awesome.
I think winging it, you can wing it and you can come out on top in terms of like it being very affordable. And then obviously the perks of like, you don't have to pay for bills. You don't have to pay for like in the UK, there's council tax, right? Which is like exist where you already pay rent, which just seems ridiculous. But yeah, you can avoid all of those things. And it becomes much cheaper. Actually, I find that being on the road is a lot cheaper than paying rent in, London, for example, and living in London full time. And I mean, of course, that comes with a huge caveat of like, okay, of course, the cost of living in London is higher than most of the world. And of course, if you go to somewhere like Norway, maybe that's not the case. Being a traveler in Norway, you might end up paying more, but generally speaking, because of the way the world is.
You're absolutely right. And I think Eric, who came on a few weeks ago, they're traveling full time, Eric and Christy, they're called Live Let Roam. He says, you just realize how much you spend in normal life. Like right now, and like, oh, we paid that much for rent, that for bills, that for TV. Fucking hell, that's a lot of money per month. So when you're off
Mm.
on the road, and like you say, you're getting free accommodation, which is something I need to get better at. It's something I need to work on and use those services like you just said. But when you realise what your rent is for your apartment, and then all the stuff that goes with that, you realise you fork out a fuck ton of money a month just to live in one place. So
Yeah.
arguably, you could say traveling around full time is cheaper.
Yeah, and I think it comes back to this idea of normalizing. I think when you live in one place, you normalize so much. Like I was talking
Yeah.
to my sister earlier, and she has like a little bar cart here in her kitchen with a bunch of different liquors, and she has like a little bartending station. She's not a bartender or anything. She just
Mm.
has she's a hobbyist, right? Like she's into it.
Yeah.
She finds it interesting and fun, and she loves serving her friends different things and experimenting, whatever. And so she was like, "Yeah, this is one of the things I would really miss if I was traveling full time." And that's funny because like to me it's like I have my equivalents of that, right? I also am a musician. I also played in bands,
Yeah.
and like when you travel around a lot you don't get to do that. Like okay, I could meet up with some dudes and jam a bit, but like it's not the same as having
Mm.
your group meeting multiple times a week, playing, working on songs. Like it's a different feeling, and like
Yeah.
this you can't do when you're traveling. Or like playing team sports, I also love that.
Yeah.
That's something that
Same as
I
me.
can't
Yeah.
join a team and like be there for a season, right? Like I could go to 2 or 3 trainings, but I couldn't like
Yeah.
really get into that community. So like I miss those things too. And I think it's just a case of normalizing and then prioritizing. So like,
Mm.
like what you were saying, you normalize paying rent, you normalize having car payments, you normalize, I don't know, going out every weekend, you normalize such and such in your let's say sedentary as in non-nomadic life.
Yeah.
But equally on the other side of the coin, like nomads have normalized different things. Like I've normalized living out of a backpack. I came
Yeah.
home to my bedroom in London and I opened my closet and I was like, whoa. I don't even have a lot of stuff. Like I try very hard to like cut through my stuff and like sort of
Mm.
give to charity what I don't wear and keep it very minimal. But even I got home and I was like, whoa, I have a lot of stuff. By comparison, my sister might come home and look at that and be like, what are you talking about? You have like one coat. So it's just about normalizing different things, I think.
Yeah, prioritization is a great term.
Mm.
So a lot of people, I've said this many times on this podcast, a lot of people would say, "Oh, I'd love to do that," but I'm like, "Well, do you though? Because
Yes.
you chosen to buy a house, and just accept it. Just accept that you wanted that house, and that is your choice. Don't then say, "But I'd love to go traveling though," because you don't because you would go traveling. I'm a very
Yes.
firm believer in that. Unless the only caveat to that is kids. That's a difficult one because people want kids, and I get that. And traveling with kids can be quite difficult, not impossible. But that could
Yes.
be an extra caveat. But like materialistic things like having a car or a job is a classic one, a house.
Yeah.
You chose to have that, and that's fine. Just accept it.
Someone told me they would miss their at-home office setup. And I was like, okay, like, no, but that's fine. Like, if
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
something that
If
you miss,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
fair enough, that's something you would miss. But don't like tell me that you're, I don't know, jealous of my life or tell me
yeah,
that I'm lucky that I'm traveling so
yeah.
much because like you clearly made your choice and like that's
Mm,
fine. Like honor your choice, own your choice for sure.
yeah,
But like don't let yourself feel down when you see someone else living in a different way then
yeah.
because yeah, exactly like you say, it comes to the acceptance piece.
And they've got to be acceptance of their own situation. If they're not happy with that, they've got to change it. But I can also see that, like you say, when you grow up, things are normalized. Like you should get a house, you should get a job, you should go to university. Those things are
Yeah.
so normalized and so standard, bog standard lifestyle in the Western world that you just go into them. I was getting into them until a certain point, and it switched, luckily for me. But up until midway through my music degree, I was like, well, yeah, of course, I'll get some sort of music work and I'll just try and buy a house. Like that's what I had in my mind, and then it's a switch, right? So a lot of people
Mm.
do fall for that trap because you kind of, I don't want to use the word brainwashed, but you're kind of told every bloody week.
Conditioned.
Yeah, conditioned. Yeah, that's what you should do.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, the same goes the other way though. Like, I, for example, have to, oh, I can't remember the exact word you used just now, but like I also have to sort of prioritize stuff. Like I've prioritized travel, for example, at the moment
Yeah,
over the team sports and the being in a
yeah,
band.
yeah.
And like there's
Mm.
things that struggles that come with traveling long term. Like you can feel lonely, you can get travel
Mm.
burnout. Like the romantic side of things is extremely complicated
Yeah, we'll come to
when you're traveling all the
that.
time. And so like I also have to make choices that I then accept the downfalls of, like I
Yeah,
made the choice that travel is number one. And the downfall is that all of those things that
yeah.
I just listed, I sometimes miss out on, even though I would also love those things. But
Mm.
yeah, it's just like at the end of the day, what's more important to you?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The one advantage of living the way that you do at the minute and the way I want to do eventually is that you can have a choice. Do you know what? If you said, oh, for 6 months, I am going to stay for a summer in Canada, I don't know, let's say you go to Nova Scotia, I'm just going to settle in Halifax. I'm just going to maybe get some work and join a team sport for 6 months. You can decide to do that with no
100%.
repercussions, because after 6 months, you can either decide to stay a bit longer or just go off. So that's the
Yeah.
flexibility of long-term travel, right? You do have that option. It's not be all
Yeah.
end of like stay in one place forever. You can dot around the world in theory, if you can manage to maybe make a living on the road.
100%, definitely. And I think also a lot of nomads, what they do is like, I mean, not everyone does it like me. Like I have no ties anywhere at the moment. I just have
Yeah.
my laptop and I'm happy go lucky skipping around the world, trying to like make a couple bucks online so I can keep doing this. Like that's
Yeah.
how I operate. But the majority of my friends actually who are also nomadic don't do that. The majority of them have a base somewhere. They have an
Yeah.
apartment, they rent, and they live with flatmates and they spend a few months a year there. But then they'll jump over to somewhere else and like sublet their room. They'll sublet the
Okay.
room, they'll jump somewhere else and spend, I don't know, like I have a friend who lives in Berlin and he will be at his place in Berlin and then I don't know, at a moment's notice, just fly over to Istanbul, for example. He's fallen in love with Istanbul. I haven't been yet, but he's
Okay.
obsessed. And
Same.
like he goes there, he stays for 3 months, then he comes back, then he's in Berlin for like, I don't know, 2 weeks, then he goes to Morocco for 2 weeks, then he comes back to Berlin, he's there for a month, then he goes to, I don't know, Portugal for 2 months. You know what I mean? Like, so a lot of my friends kind of do it that way too. So there's no one size fits all. There's no rule book. There's no
no rule book. Yeah.
right way to do it. Like whatever works for you is the way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah. It's interesting to Istanbul. Heard so much things about that. We'll come to travel in a bit. I'm keen to carry on with the full-time lifestyle. So, did you have a normal job before you made the jump to like this lifestyle right now? Like, did you have the normal life, should we say?
Yes. Oh, well, kind of. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I finished university. I finished my master's. And then I moved back down to London and I wanted to work in a startup. So I managed to get a job in a startup. My master's was in sustainable agriculture and food security. So that's what I was
Okay.
super interested in at the time. And I wanted to work in food tech or ag tech, something related to that. And I wanted it to be a startup because I wanted to see how a business is built and grows from like ground zero, basically. And I
Yeah.
managed to get into a startup in London, very early stage as an intern. Yeah, I was with them for about a year and a half, full-time office job. This was pre-pandemic. So, you know, like
Yeah.
9 to 6, 9 to 6:30 every day. And sadly, I wasn't even making enough to move out of my parents' house. So I was living with my parents.
Well, I was going
while
to
I was
say,
doing,
intern London, that must be tough.
yeah, at least it was paid, honestly. Like,
Oh, crikey.
but that's a whole
Yeah.
other thing. Like unpaid internships, don't do them. Everyone
No.
listening, don't do them. It's not worth it.
I think the generation now probably not going to do them. I think they realise that's just slave labour.
It is absolute exploitation. It's not
Yeah.
okay at any point. But yeah, so I did have that like quote unquote normal job. I was in marketing and I worked up from intern to like executive over that year and a half. And then I decided to quit. Like there was nothing wrong. It was very strange. Like I just kind of felt the time was right to leave. I had an amazing relationship with my boss. Like the
Yeah.
team was excellent. The work was interesting. It came to a point where I was like, you know, this Facebook group I told you about, the Nomad Facebook
Yeah.
group, was in the back of my mind the whole time. And
Yeah.
I was like, Julia, it's been like 6 or 7 years since you've discovered this. You literally have not acted in any, you just continued down this pipeline of like, you know, university, like grad job, whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's kind of now or never. Like I was 23 at that point, and I was like, it's now or never. Like just go. I had a little bit saved up, nothing crazy. It was like a couple of grand. It wasn't like stacks and stacks. You know what I mean? Enough to like where I felt comfortable to go off for like a couple of months and just see what happened.
Yeah.
So that's what I did.
Yeah. And a couple of grand does get you. This is the mindset of maybe the traveller. If I had a couple of grand saved, or you know, that can donate to travel. I know, like in Asia, for example, that is going to be 1 or 2 months. Like,
Yes.
people find it a bit crazy, but you know that's obviously an enormous privilege that we can go and do that. But that is an option.
Definitely. Yeah. And also having parents that lived in London was a huge privilege. Like I was only able to save that because I wasn't paying rent. So
Yeah.
that's like hands up, fully acknowledge that like parent privilege is real. And not everybody has that. So yeah, big up to mom and dad.
Yeah, key. Facebook group. I'm part of that Passport My Stamp Facebook group. Are you part of that?
No,
Passport My
I
Stamp.
don't need Facebook. Passport My Stamp. What is that? What are they like? Oh,
This is a bit more extreme traveller group. Hearing people, they put trip reports in there. People are like, oh, I went to French Guyana the other day. Here's what happened. Oh, I tried to go to Mogadishu the other day. This is what happened, and this is what you should do. Like, I know some of these are extreme and like, oh, you shouldn't go there, but it just gets you the juices flowing. Like, oh, all these places that you probably one not even heard of that much, and two that it's possible to go to. That does get you going. And if you're a traveller, like, oh, that is possible. I've got a few guests from that group to come on, and it's quite interesting because I'm so interested in their trip.
What do you mean by extreme travel?
So the first guy I got on, that guy called Frank, he came on, Francois Paradis.
Mm-hmm.
He hitchhiked in Afghanistan, so I wanted to know what the hell was going on there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a very
Cool.
extreme type of travel this year that he done, hitchhiking in Afghanistan. And I just saw a guy posting there that he's on his last 3 countries of the UN list and the TCC 330. So TCC is an extreme travel group, and they list all the countries in the world, but also regions and islands in the world to tick off. And he's completed that in about a couple of weeks. So he's going to come on and talk about his travels to every country in the world. So yeah,
that's wild.
Just keen, not like every country. I'm just keen to hear the mindset and how and the logistics, and just to know if it's possible, really.
Yeah, I'm very interested in that too, because I'm always like skeptical about this whole like country counting thing, because for me personally, I think I get a lot more out of being in a place for more than a month. Like I found that 1 month is like sort of, for me personally, like the lower part of how long I can stay in a place, because it takes me about a week to like adjust to a place, because it's the first week is not cute. Like the first week for me at least is like slightly stressful, like a bit overwhelming. Why am I here? A little bit outside my comfort zone, you know, but then you figure out the public transport, you figure out like the accommodation, you kind of get your bearings around the neighborhoods, like maybe you've met 1 or 2 people and you suddenly feel a little bit more comfortable. So you're like, oh, great. And then you go into phase 2, which is like exploration mode. And this is like the dopamine's high. You're running on adrenaline. You're like, this is so great. This is why I travel. My life is amazing. And then around week 4, towards the end of week 4, I start getting a little bit like settled, let's say, like that kind of calms and then it kind of becomes more like normal life, and that's when I start to see nuances. I start to see things I don't like about a place, because you know at the beginning it's all honeymoon and wonderful and rose-colored glasses. So and I think that's where you start to get to know a place. It's kind of like when you're in a relationship and you don't see any flaws and you haven't had a fight yet and you're like, oh, this person's amazing. This is kind of like once you've had that first fight and you make up, I feel like that kind of tells you what the tone of the relationship really is. And so this is this equivalent in travel, I think. So I'd be very interested to hear what these folks have to say, because presumably they're not spending that much time in each place if they're able to be in literal every part of the world.
It's an interesting mindset, so I'm trying to understand it more. And I've got no prejudice, no like thoughts on like, oh, you shouldn't do that. I just want to hear different types of travel, right? But I think you are right. You want to stay somewhere longer, because it all depends on the size of the country, right? You're not going to stay a month in Andorra. I mean, you're probably going to stay there a week tops, because it's so small. But somewhere like Indonesia, you could probably spend a year, right, and go to different islands, different states and stuff. So you are right. If the ability is there to maybe just check it out a bit longer. And is that what you try to do with your mentality? Is just to maybe you pick a place that you want to go and visit, but you would stay there for 4 to 6, 8 weeks?
Yeah, in general. I mean, of course, it's not like a hard and fast rule. Like in general, if I'm trying to explore a place, yes. Like if I'm going to visit a friend and it happens to be a new place, then it's a little different. Like it's more about the experience with that person rather than trying to, be in a bit more of like a tourist mindset, let's say. Yeah.
Okay. And ups and downs of full-time travel. So you mentioned some already before. Let's go upsides. I think we discussed already. Lifestyle is a bit freer. You can go different places wherever you want. And it's long term, so there's no time constraint, I'd imagine, for you.
Yeah, I mean, this I think ties in with visas and passports and stuff. I think that will vary from person to person depending what passport you have. I really hope that we get to a point in the world where this is all abolished and like whoever you want can travel wherever and stay, and all the rules are the same across the board. That would be freaking wonderful.
Do you have 2 passports?
Yeah, luckily, yeah.
What do you have?
I have a couple.
Yeah.
I have an American one, a British one, and a Greek one.
Oh wow!
So it's very lucky, very lucky. Yeah, it definitely makes things easy paperwork wise for most of the world.
Bloody hell, yeah. That's a good array of options. That.
Yeah, when Brexit happened, I was like, God bless my passport. Because until then, I never used it. I was always on my British one because it worked. But then Brexit happened, and I was like, oh, Dad, you really came through.
We're trying to work out what European passport we can get so we can have the same as the Greek one. Yeah, it's an interesting one.
I am thinking about giving back my US one because I never use it. Right. It has tax implications that are like just a headache. I'm like, oh. It's the only country in the world. Even if you don't live there, you still pay tax there your whole life. And it's like, why?
Yes, I've heard this. Yeah.
I mean, I don't identify with the US. I know my accent is kind of American, like we talked about, but I don't identify with it. I don't see myself ever living there. I don't like, I just don't see it. So
Mm,
I'm like, why should I keep it? Like, that's
yeah.
how I see it. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see.
So you've got citizenship in all three of those countries, right?
Mm.
It's interesting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you might as well give the US one up because I don't think that would trump having the other two for the sake of it having a third one. I don't see an advantage there. I don't know if maybe you can go to like some countries easier, but the tax implications, like you say, would be a nightmare.
I think, I mean, I haven't looked in detail into it, but like it seems like whatever the rules are for the US one, they're the same for the UK one
Okay.
in general, at least the
Yeah.
places I've looked at and been so far.
Yeah.
So it's all good. I just wish that I could just give it to, because I know like the American passport is so sought after, and I just wish that I could like, instead of just getting rid of it, I wish I could like give it to
Donate
some.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, really, I really like,
Yeah.
and this kind of weighs on my conscience too. Like this is why I haven't done it yet. One of the main reasons is because I'm like, but it's such a privilege, and like it's not something to be flippant about, and
Mm.
it's something very serious that people risk their lives for, and like it's the dream of families and all this kind of stuff, and for me to just be like, oh, just give it away can be very it can come off as not so not so great. So yeah, I don't know. I haven't landed on what I'm going to do yet.
But it must run out. Like it must have an expiry date,
Yeah,
so you could just not renew it. I guess. Is that how you do it? Is there like
true.
an official
I actually don't know.
thing to hand it back?
Yeah, it is an official thing. And I think if you hand it back, you can't then get it again. So I was joking with my family. I was like, could you imagine a sick twist of fate if like I gave it back and then the love of my life was this like American dude and like I
Yeah.
couldn't move there because I gave it up and like now yeah.
Oh man, what a decision. Yeah, it's a tough one. I think if there wasn't tax implications, that'd be easier. I could just keep it. But the fact you have to keep doing that every year,
Yeah.
just quickly, how does that work? Do they actually want to know if you're making any money abroad?
Any money that you make anywhere in the world, you have to declare all of your income to the IRS.
Yeah,
And then the way that it works is that, okay, so for the moment I pay tax in the UK, right?
yeah,
And like, the tax bracket that I'm in is higher in the UK than it would be if I was making the same in the US.
okay,
That means that like the amount of tax that I pay to the UK is higher than what I would pay if I was living and working in the US on the same amount of money.
yeah,
And so what happens is the difference between those two would be tax amounts. I get credits for it in the US. So I get credits on the difference. If it was the opposite, if the bracket in the US would be higher than in the UK, then I would pay my tax to the UK as normal, and I would pay the extra to the US to like top
right.
up.
But you actually get credits because it's higher in UK.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it. Oh, that's very interesting.
But those credits expire. I don't know how many years, maybe a decade. I don't know. So like you have to use them if you want to use them. Otherwise, if they just sit there, they will over time like disappear.
Okay, this is a bit of like the cynical me here. What happens if you just lie? Like, how would they know if you
I don't
don't
know.
earn money or do earn money and it's not in US?
I mean, it's up to you to declare it, right? I
Yeah.
don't know. I really don't know. Honestly,
Mm.
tax is one thing that I don't really want to faff around with because
Fair.
I really don't want to just like do something even by accident and then have it bite me in the butt like 5 years later. Oh, that would suck, dude. Like it's just not
Yeah.
worth it. There's some things that I'm happy to bend the rules on. There's a lot of things I'm happy to bend the rules on, but tax is not one of them.
It's just a shitty rule because you could like spend a whole year in, I don't know, Indonesia doing some jobs remotely, and let's say you legally pay tax there, but because you've got an American passport, you'd also have to declare it. Well, that's pointless.
Yeah.
How's that even a thing? It's like nothing to do with them. You've gone to Indonesia for a year to work. Like that's.
Well, actually, it's interesting that you say that. What has that got to do with them? Because that's kind of how I feel now. And now I'm in a position where for this coming tax year, I did the math yesterday. I've spent 57 days of the year in the UK. It's like nothing.
Yeah.
And yet, like the way that I'm set up now, January comes, I'm gonna have to pay tax to the UK. But part of me is like, so why should I pay tax to a system that I'm not using? You know what I mean? So I don't know. This is you want to downsides about full-time travel. This is one of them. All this bureaucracy. I haven't figured out what I'm going to do yet. There must be some kind of like, I don't know, nomad friendly solution.
Well, I think I asked Andre the same question. I was like, well, how's it actually going to work in the future? Like logistically, I'm talking about like visa situation. He thinks it will change where they're trying to create a country on the internet, right? Where you can actually go to different countries and work remotely and not go through the traditional application of visas. But then I was thinking, well, what about tax though and insurance and like, I don't know, let's say I have a car in one country. Like, how do I get... It's just hard to figure out all the rules that you're normally accustomed to with a normal life. But as a nomad, it's quite it's gonna take years for them to draw that out.
Yeah, I love
But
what they're doing. I'm a huge fan. Like, yeah, this whole digital country, I'm so here for it. And to your point where you were like, oh, if I have a car, what am I going to do? This just made me think of something like fresh thought, never had it before.
mm,
I wonder if it's going to push things to be more like community based rather than hyper individualistic. Cause it's like, maybe if the world kind of shifts that way, it doesn't really make sense for you to own a car. You know what I mean? Maybe it
yeah,
makes sense to be part of like a communal, like car
mm,
sharing service where it's like you land in Greece. Okay, great. You know that you've booked this car for this day to that day. Like global car renting, but like
yeah, yeah,
somehow some kind of halfway house between owning and renting a car. You know what I mean?
yeah. I talked about this with my friend who lives in Scotland. Actually, he lives a bit further up than you,
Mm,
and he was saying like the community aspect is the way to go. Like for example, he's trying to build his like little farm, and he's like, well, there's I don't know 5,000 people around the local area, if you like, where he lives. We all just
mhm.
need one type of tractor, right, or one type of
Yes.
machinery. And he's right, but there's a problem with this: is the whole economy is based on you not doing that. The
Yeah.
economy of how it's set up right now, capitalism and all that, they want you to buy shit all the time. They want each individual to buy a tractor each because that's what feeds the money into the economy. If we all start sharing stuff and not spending money, hence the UK is a mess right now because no one's spending any money, then
Because they
uh,
haven't got any.
yeah, exactly. I don't know how it's
His
going to
wages
go.
haven't gone up in like over a decade.
Yeah, I don't know what the right
Mm.
system is, but yeah, I think you're right. Community aspect is the way.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, yeah, this community based agriculture is freaking fantastic. It's something that I was very into back when I was doing my master's, as I mentioned before. Like, yeah, and it was exactly that example that they gave. And yeah, it doesn't really make sense. And the other example of this has faded out of society very recently is like the laundromat. I feel like in the 90s,
Oh,
laundromats were everywhere. And
yeah,
like
yeah,
now
yeah,
everybody's got one in their building and it's like, or
yeah,
in their
yeah.
room, not their room, in their apartment or in their house or whatever. And it's like, why?
Not here.
Like, okay, you can for convenience, but like, you can also just go like a couple doors down on the street and like chuck it in for like a pound and you know I don't know. It's just another example of just like this need to own. And I don't think
Mm,
that this need to own is necessarily natural. I mean, it's not always productive to talk about whether something's natural or not. You can never know. But it's not like the world has become this way because we wanted it to be this way. It's almost like
mm,
we're like this now because the forces that be have pushed us this way, if that makes sense. You know what
yeah,
I mean? And it comes back to normalizing, like we talked about before. Now it's normal to have a laundry machine in your kitchen or wherever it is. Whereas maybe like 30 years ago, it was totally normal to go down to a laundromat. So yeah, it's funny how quick things can change in a society and we forget what it used to be like.
yeah. It's insatiable desire to own stuff, which for me, I just
Yeah.
don't get. Again, it's another mentality shift that I had, is I don't have a hankering to own things. I'm like, I don't need a new car. I don't need a house. I don't
Yeah.
need a rug. I don't need all this shit.
Yeah.
But people
And this
think they do. But I think growing up, let's not get too conspiracy theory here, but like when you grow up and you watch TV, for example, the
mm,
adverts that come on, advertising, this is what it does. Advertising is there to train your thought to things. So you probably, without even knowing over the years, subconsciously now, like, oh yeah, I do want a house and I do want a car and I do want to keep upgrading all the time with a new salary. And you get in this
mm,
rut where you have like, you live on not the bread line, but you've got this stuff that you own to this wage, and that can kind of do it. You get paid more. Now you should stay there, but no, people get more, and they keep going up, up, and up, and that's why people get in shit and get in debt.
lifestyle creep. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
the rat race,
Exactly.
if you like, another term for it. Someone called that.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a weird mentality, and I don't think it's our fault actually. I think you're right. It's other people putting that thought in your mind without you even knowing it. That's why ads work so well.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because yeah, like I mean, ads really are trying to hit on an emotion. Like, what are you
Mm,
missing? It's not really selling you a product or an item. It's selling you an idea or a lifestyle or like an emotional pain that that thing is going to be able to soothe. So like, it's not about owning the new car. It's not about owning the new phone. It's not. It's about what does that say about me as a person
mm,
if I'm the one that has the iPhone 14 before everybody else. You know, like,
yeah.
and this is another thing that when I push people on this with the why, there, it's nothing. It's smoke behind it. Like, if someone out there has a good answer, tell me. I'd love to hear it. I'm always open to changing my mind. But for the moment, it's like, okay, but why do you want the new iPhone? Oh, because it's new. Okay, why do you want a new thing? Because it's cool. Okay, but why is it cool? You know, you like a toddler, you just keep going, and there's nothing there. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Why do you want a house? Because you pay interest on it. So
Mm.
I say to people, okay, you've got a 30-year mortgage, right? Let's calculate how much you pay in interest over the 30 years. You're paying it 3 times over. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's a lot of money considering what a house is worth.
Why do you want a house? Because I like the idea of owning like a thing of land. And it's like,
Mm,
okay, what does that idea give you? Like emotionally, what does it give you? It makes you feel stable. Does it make you feel like successful? Does it make it feel like you fulfilled your purpose as a provider? Does it make you feel less anxious about having a family? Like, what is the actual underlying thing? And
mm,
all of those things are valid. And that's fine. If you want a house, get a house. It's cool. But I think that a lot of people don't go to those deeper levels to figure out what the
yeah.
exact emotional underpinning is. And when you don't have that, I think it's difficult to live from an authentic, intentional place, which is where I think the greatest fulfillment comes from. And it comes back to your thing before of talking about like how we're all on this pipeline because we're conditioned, we're conditioned, school, uni, buy a house, good job, have kids, without ever pausing to think about it. And it can be that that is actually your dream life. And that's great and power to you. But make sure it's coming from that intentional place that you've really thought about it, that you've really decided, like, here are all my options. And no, I still do want to have that quote unquote traditional life. Then great, go for it. Yeah, my blessing.
It comes back to, and I said this again in the podcast, is like, why do people have midlife crisis? Like, why is midlife crisis such a accepted and known thing? Well,
Mm-hmm.
think about it. The guy gets to, well, could be girl as well, gets to 45, maybe late 40s, looks back and goes, fuck, I've just spent 20, 25 years working my ass off. And what have I got to show for it? I've got a house that is just a pile of bricks that, yeah, it's a house, it's somewhere I live. I've got a car that I need to upgrade. The classic ones, oh, I bought a Jaguar because it's midlife crisis. You think you need a car. People just start to realize that, oh, damn, I've kind of wasted my life a little bit.
Mm.
And that has to come down to life experiences. And I'm convinced it comes down to that people just don't travel enough and don't go and seek to meet people and understand like we're all the same a little bit. And so we go and meet someone somewhere else and just have a connection. And I think the human connection is much stronger than a materialistic connection. And that's why people are in such shit. I mean, there has to be a reason people with depression is increasing. And I don't know. I know people live longer these days, so you can't say that as a whole, but mental health is a real thing now. Like, it's starting to come out that a lot of people have it, and it's something that we need to discuss.
I think partially it's linked to this individualism that has been on the rise, because if you think about it, being in community is one of the most rebellious things that you can do. And also being in community, like being in, social, having a very strong social support network. Like, okay, I'm by no means a psychologist or psychiatrist or therapist or any of this, but from my understanding is that like a very commonly like suggested, recommended thing is like have a good social system around you that will help with a lot of your symptoms of like depression, particularly. I mean, like maybe not cure it, but like you will fare a lot better. You know what I mean? And if you have community, you can maybe feel some type of way about that. And then also on the flip side, like I feel like with community, coming back to like your friend, the farmer who was trying to share a tractor with all the other farmers around, like if you're in community, you're able to like leverage the group, you know what I mean? So like you distribute cost. So your money altogether goes further. And then also like no one really gets left behind. Like if you are struggling, you have a really tough month, you have like no money, your community's got you. They're like, dude, we got you. And like when you're up and we're down, you'll get us, and it's all good. And there's power in that. And I think that it's a threat to like systemic power. So if they're able to split us up, it kind of puts the ball more in their court. It all comes down to power dynamics, I think.
And I think people listening to this might think, oh, well, maybe not my listening group. If a random person listeners think, oh, you're just like a bit crazy or a bit socialist. It's what I consider normal thinking. Like, why wouldn't you want to help someone out and have a community? Like, it's not even politics based. It's just locally like trying to help some people out. That's all it is, like helping the other person.
Yeah, absolutely.
UK's bad for this, and US as well. Like, as soon as you start spouting some of these ideas, you get called all sorts, and like, you're this, you're that. Like, people get really defensive about the current system, yet they don't realise they've been fucked themselves. So it's a really weird scenario. I don't know, maybe it'll get better with the generation. You kind of hope going forward it would, but
I think so. I see kind of some of the discussions happening online, like the kind of things that are being shared on social media, and I really think people are fed up. And I really, really feel like with people who are sort of in the teens and like 20s now, I feel like things will change. I really hope they will. But I mean, the perfect example of this, like summarized, is I was visiting a friend, and they were staying, it was somewhere in the US, and we were cooking something and they didn't have salt. And I was like, well, we're not going to go out and just like buy a thing of salt. Like, let me just knock on your neighbor's door and ask if we can borrow the salt. So we did. And my friend was gobsmacked. He was like, what? I was like, yeah, we'll just borrow the salt, use some, give it back. Like, it's not a big deal. And
Yeah.
he was just like, I would have never thought of that. Like, oh my goodness. And I was like, why?
Crazy. Yeah.
Did the same with a wine opener a bit later in the night.
Yeah, it's weird, and it kind of links back to like this travel lifestyle where I'm thinking that, and it's crazy that we've got ourselves in this position. Like, talk about like midlife crisis, for example. Like, let's say you got a normal job, you get, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks a year. It's crazy that you can't even take 2 months of the year off to go and live or go and check out a bit of Asia, for example, just to recharge, see a new culture. You can't do that. US must be even worse. Like here, Canada's 2 weeks is
10
the
days.
10 days in the US. Yeah, so same as there. It's like you can't actually on a whim nip out for 2 months to go and check out Indonesia because you've got to come back to work. And I think that
Yeah.
handcuff of a job really gets to people, but I think people feel trapped and they can't get out of it. But I think there is a way out of it.
Yes, there definitely is. And there's never been an easier time to get out of it, I think.
Mm. And I think that's true with the jobs and traditional companies struggling to recruit because this is weird dynamic, right? I was talking to a friend the other day about pre-pandemic in Vancouver where I live now, jobs, 80 to 90 people at a job, right? Applicants, real tough, competitive, fuck, like I'm not going to get a job. Fast forward to now, post-pandemic, can't recruit because people actually say, no, nah, it's not good enough. Like, not enough flexibility, not enough money, have to go in the office, I want to work remote. So now it is shifting. I'm keen
Yeah.
to see where it goes.
It's such a shame because sometimes I'm looking for opportunities and it's happened in the past couple of weeks that I've seen things that I'm like, oh my God, this is made for me. I'm reading a
Yeah.
job. I'm like, I have very disparate like skill sets that are completely unrelated. And I'm seeing these things that literally brings everything I've ever done together into one. And I'm like, I am the person for this job. I go to apply, it says in office. I'm like, why? So I don't apply. And it's a
Yeah.
shame because I would love
Yeah.
that work. I'm sure that I could bring a lot of value to them.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that they would enjoy working with me because I actually know what I'm talking about and all this kind of stuff. And I mean, I don't say this to sound super arrogant or whatever, just a shame, just like a lost opportunity, and it doesn't happen just once or twice. It happens a lot. And I'm like, dude, and someone might listen to this and be like, oh, just give up traveling then. And it's like, no.
No.
It comes back to the priority thing. It's like the traveling is more of a priority for me at this point. Maybe there will be a point in some years in the future where I'm like, you know what? I need to take a little break. I'm going to settle somewhere for a couple of years. It's just like a give and take because no state is ever permanent, right? Like everything is temporary. So
yeah, true.
Yeah, but at the moment, don't want to give up my travel. So
also, if you're able at the moment, let's not be too naive in terms of like health. This is another thing that people say, oh, I'll travel when I'm retired. No. Like
right.
you can't guarantee that. Like you can't guarantee you'll be alive. True. So that's another reason to travel is that if you're able and you're healthy and you can get out and about, that has to be another reason. You want to get to like a stage that if you have to stay somewhere for a year just to health reasons or whatever to recover, you want to sit there for a year and go, God, I've done a lot the last 10 years. That all right, I'll stay around for a year, like get better. Yeah. You want that instead of sitting there for a year going, fuck, I didn't do enough when I was like back then.
It's very true. And I think the way that you travel when you're younger versus when you're older is completely different. Like kinds of things that you'd be up for when you're in your 20s versus in your 60s or 70s is completely different. The kinds of activities you get joy from are totally different. And I also think that when you travel when you're younger, you're more impressionable, you're more malleable, you're more able to change your mind rapidly about things. And I mean, okay, this is a generalization because I've met people who are, senior citizens who are super cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Super open-minded, like will readily change their mind, will be like, really, I didn't know that. How great. Isn't that so interesting? But the majority are quite set in their ways. And so I think that they maybe just don't get as much out of it as they would have if they maybe did it when they were younger, I think.
Yeah. So if you're young right now, listen, get the fuck out there.
Yeah.
I was then going to ask actually on the list before we quickly get to Indonesia and Bali because I want to hear about that sort of stuff. I got here. What was your first sort of like adventure? I think I put here. You put Crete in 2019.
Oh, I love this story. It was great. It really was the pivotal point. So okay, so let me take you back. So I had just quit this in-office pre-pandemic marketing job that I told you about in the startup. I had just quit that and I didn't have a plan. And I literally, much like you, was going to wing it. I decided I was going to come up to Edinburgh for the Fringe Festival in August and work on a food truck that I had worked on as a student. I messaged the boss and I was like, listen, I was thinking about doing this. Like, do you need staff? And he said, yes, I do. And I said, oh, amazing. So it worked out super well in the sense that he needed staff. So I was able to work. And then my sister had an internship in London. So we did a little room swap. I took her room and she took mine and that all worked out really well. Anyway, worked there and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do in September. And then I realized, oh, September is like grape harvesting season. And I had done like a project in my master's about like viticulture and about like the effects of climate change on grapes and this and that. And I was like, wouldn't it be really great to go to Greece and like harvest some grapes and learn about making wine and all this, put my theory into practice. So I set it up on Workaway and everything was agreed with the guy. Like fast forward, it's all booked, it's all agreed, whatever. And I'm very much like a do first, think later person. I'm very much like a it's all going to work out kind of person. So I don't think about things until they happen. And then I'm like, oh, didn't know I needed to worry about this, but here we are. So what happened was I boarded the plane. I got on the flight London, Athens, and then I had a layover and I was going to Crete. And in the layover, I was like, it's been 5 days since I've heard from this guy. So his farm was in the middle of nowhere and I can't drive. I don't have a license. So we had agreed that he was going to pick me up from the bus stop, like a bus stop sort of 2.5 hours away from the airport. So I was going to arrive in Crete, get on a bus for 2.5, 3 hours. And then he was going to pick me up from a specific stop and drive me to his farm. I was like, okay, but I haven't heard from him in 5 days. So like, what if he doesn't show up? And I don't know anyone on this island except for one family who I had met 2 years prior when I was road tripping around the same island with a friend of mine. And they had a house on Airbnb and we stayed with them for 2 nights and they were wonderful. And they lived in the opposite direction from the airport, about 4 hours the other way. So I was like, okay, I have to choose because if I go where he told me to go and he was going to pick me up and he's not there, then I'm stuck. And it's going to be nighttime and whatever. And I had no money because this is Workaway, right? So your food accommodation is included. So I had literally like 200 euros for the whole month. So I was not in a position where I could be like, it's fine, I'll just go to a hotel and then figure it out tomorrow. No, I was like, every single euro counts. So I decided to message him and just say, listen, I wasn't sure if you're going to be there, so I've gone the other way. And I went to this family and I messaged them and I said, listen, this is the situation. I'm stuck. I have no money. My plans fell through. Can I please crash at yours for like a couple nights till I can figure myself out? And they were like, absolutely, no problem. And I went and I stayed there. And long story short, I stayed there for about a week. And they literally treated me like their granddaughter. It was this elderly Greek couple. And I barely speak Greek, much to the disappointment of my father. But I barely speak any. So between my broken Greek and like Google Translate, we were getting by and they were so sweet, literally treated me like a granddaughter, were like feeding me, taking me around to different beaches and all this. And it was very, very sweet and wholesome time. They were very adamant on me staying for the whole month. And I was like, you know what? I could book a flight home because this is a disaster, or I can like stay in the chaos and see where it takes me. So I stayed in the chaos. And I basically posted in this Nomad Facebook group. Finally, I posted in there and it was like a full circle moment. 16-year-old me was screaming. She was like, oh my God, you did it. And I posted, I was like, guys, I will do anything. I will sweep floors. I will feed cats. I will teach children. I will build a shed. I will weed your garden. I will do whatever if you can give me a free bed, please. And some guy saw my post and messaged me and was like, yes, we're building like this sanctuary out of like this 800-year-old ruined building that I live in, like blah, blah, blah. Come over. So I went over and typical me part 2, doing first and thinking later. I took the bus all the way across the island because Crete is like very wide, like horizontal.
Yeah, it's wide, isn't it?
Yeah. And so I was on one end and he was in the other end. So it was about like 6 hours or 7 hours of buses.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was half an hour away from the final destination that I was like, this is a single solitary man. I am a young 20-something-year-old girl by herself. I don't know him. This could be really like, it didn't dawn on me until I was about to the bus. And then I was like, whoa, okay, it's also nighttime, it's dark, I don't have a fallback, I have no money, like I'm in a very vulnerable position. I thrive in chaos. So anyway, I made a little WhatsApp group with my partner at the time, his sister, my sister, and my best friend, and not my mom, obviously.
Yeah,
and I was like, guys, I need to be in this village in about half an hour. If I'm not, like, call the police. And I shared my location with that group and everything. Anyway, I met him and within 2 seconds I could like feel the vibe and my intuition was like, this is fine, like this is all good, like don't stress. And I ended up staying with him for like 2 weeks. We like cleared up his little house, like did lots of cleaning and stuff and had a blast. And then from there I went to the cheapest hostel in Crete, which was in the south.
Yeah.
In Pakias, and that was very much like hippie vibes because the south of Crete used to be like a hippie mecca back in the day. And like that kind of feeling is still in the air. It's still there. Lots of nudist beaches, lots of like rock climbing, lots of like in nature stuff. And like I literally just Googled cheapest hostel in Crete and one came up. It was like €8 a night. I was like booked, done. And I went there for the last week. So yeah, 56 euros. It was incredible. Like it was amazing. That trip on the whole taught me so much. It taught me that people on the whole are very kind, very good.
Yes.
They will help you when you need help. You don't need much language to communicate and create a bond with people. Like the elderly couple, my pseudo grandparents, you know, we connected so much. And then also that like I can rely on myself to handle these kinds of situations and everything is going to be okay. And once
Mm.
I had a taste of this, like once this experience happened, I was like, there ain't no way I'm going back to an office. What? Are you
Yeah,
crazy?
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the one where I really like tasted blood for the first time and was like, okay, I need more.
So that's like Crete on €200, some stuff happening. But you learn a lot of life skills at that. Where can you get those like
Yeah.
life skills taught in
Yeah.
other situations? Not very many.
No.
That's
And I mean,
awesome.
I was by myself all the time. Like, for example, the village where I was with this dude with the sanctuary, the beach, it was kind of up in the mountains. So the beach was 3 kilometers away. And the first time I walked down there, but then when I wanted to come back, it was all uphill. And I was like, oh, it's like 39 degrees. It's all uphill.
Oh,
I was like, maybe I'll just hitchhike. So I just hitched a ride back up. I
oh
mean, it
yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
far, but it was
yeah.
the first time that I'd done that. And that also kind of broke like a seal, let's say. And then from then on, like that's how I got around the island. I would just stand by the road, stick my thumb out. And the furthest I went was like, I went about 80 kilometers with one dude, just to go
Mm.
to a beach that I heard was pretty. He was like, oh, it was so nice to see someone doing this. I used to do, he was like old Swiss hippie. He was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I used to do this when I was in my teens and 20s. And it's so nice that you people are still doing it, you youngsters. And we had some really nice chats. And the best advice he ever gave me, he said, if you have the privilege to get lost, just stay lost. And I was like, I love that.
Wow, what a phrase
Yeah.
that is.
Mm.
I heard another phrase the other day. Someone said they were uncomfortable being comfortable. That's a good
Mm.
phrase.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of rings quite true to me, especially at this
Definitely.
minute. Yeah. A few more questions before we get to Indonesia is, so you're documenting your travels on social media, Instagram and TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
We
Yeah,
are going to come to
that's correct.
TikTok a bit later because there's more
Sure.
to that for you. Have you found just like documenting a trip? Is it cool? Do you do it like religiously in terms of every day, or how have you found that dynamic?
No, I'm really bad at it actually. I'm
Okay.
really bad at documenting my travels. Like I let's see. Oh, where to start? I've only moved on to TikTok recently within the last 2 months or so. Before that, I was sort of documenting it all on my personal Instagram, which I've since kind of
Private?
deleted.
Is it
Yeah,
private? Yeah.
yeah. Just for like friends and stuff, because I have
Yeah.
a lot of friends who are travelers, and sometimes I find that it's valuable to share where you are in that scenario because
Yeah.
like, and it has happened to me that someone will DM me and be like, oh my God, I'm there too. Or like,
Oh
oh, I'm
wow.
flying in tomorrow. Or,
Yeah.
and then you're like, oh, great. And if you didn't share, you would never know that. So
Yeah.
that's cool in that sense. But I do try to share where I am and like what's happening if it's something that I think is interesting for other people or unconventional or different. Because I always want to show people what's possible. Because
Yes.
through this Facebook group where I saw what was possible as a teenager, that's made me who I am today.
Mm.
And I'm eternally grateful for it. And like, again, this is not to be like, I'm the coolest person. Look at my life. Look at how amazing it is. It doesn't come from that place. If you take it that way, that's on you. It genuinely comes from like, look at this cool thing. Isn't this awesome? Like,
Yeah.
if you want to know more, here's the info kind of thing. And I've had people message me like when I was in Patagonia at the beginning of the year for 2 months, and I was hitchhiking across with this dude, this Argentinian dude. And like, I literally had people DMing me almost every day being like, please keep posting this stuff. Like, this is so interesting. This
Oh
is
wow.
so cool. I love
Yeah.
seeing this. I think also because it was like an alternative way to travel. You don't really hear about people hitchhiking long term a lot. So
Yes.
I think that was what really hooked them. And I
Mm.
even had one guy message me, a guy that I met in a hostel on one night, like almost a year ago now. But then it was like maybe 5 months prior. He DM'd me and he was like, I was planning a big trip this year and I was planning to go to Southeast Asia. But
Mm.
literally because of your stories over the last few days, I've changed my ticket to Argentina.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, wow.
Influencer.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So that's really cool. But like, it does take away from the moment. I feel with Instagram, it's less intrusive because you can make one little video or take a photo and just put it on your story and you kind of forget about it.
Yeah.
But I did find myself not in the moment because I was busy typing some kind of explanation on a story.
Yeah.
But it didn't take up so much time. Now that I'm on TikTok, it's weird because I prefer making content on TikTok because I feel like it's faster and easier
Yeah.
in certain formats, but it's the opposite in other formats. So like, for example, if I want to do day in the life, or if I want to do like kind of the same kind of content that I was sharing before of like, here's what I'm doing on my travels and blah, blah, blah.
Mm.
I feel that it takes me out of the moment so much more to the point where I don't enjoy it. So I don't want to make content like that. But then like, that's kind of, if I don't make that kind of content, then what am I doing? You know what I mean? And I haven't figured out the balance there yet.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was thinking. Like, what is the balance? Because when I was thinking about travel, right, hopefully we're doing it next year, is that I've got like obviously this podcast and a separate coffee podcast, which is more YouTube. Only 5-7 minute videos, very structured though, so it's very easy to do. I
Nice.
think in theory that's going to be easier because let's just go into a cafe randomly in Athens. Here's the local area, like show some footage, go to the cafe, talk about the cafe and the coffee they serve. 5-7 minutes done, you've got a recommendation for a cafe in Athens. But the whole travel portion, I'm like, oh fuck, like I don't want to be sitting there just like, oh, I can't do this today because I've got to do like Instagram stuff. Like fuck that. But you have to do something because I'm a travel podcast and I talk about travel, right? So yeah, it's interesting to see what the balance is. And
Yeah.
like
How
that
have you
guy
found
who come on hitchhiking in Afghanistan, he's like hitchhiking in Africa right now, not on any social media. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, that's so good. And he's like, what should I do? I was like, mate, you do what you want. But I said, if there's one thing you had to do, if you feel like you have to do something, do a podcast because there's audio form and people have to imagine what you're doing. I think that's almost slightly better than knowing what you're seeing because I think people want to have that imagination.
That's interesting. I never thought about it from that perspective, but it's true. Like when I came back from Argentina, I knew that I wanted to keep sharing about my travels because it's important to me, like I said before, to keep like, I don't know, showing what's possible, and sharing with people and inspiring them and stuff. But I found that Instagram was too short form. It was too like it's about quick consumption. And it comes back to what we were talking about before, right? It's quick consumption, which means that I know people are not spending a long time looking at my stories, if at all. And it means that I can churn out more stuff faster with less intention. And I thought, okay, after some reflection, I'm going to shut down this Instagram, which I did, and I'm going to move to podcasting. That was actually what made me start my podcast.
Got it.
I was like, a longer format means that I'm going to spend a lot more time with my content, which means that I will be a lot more intentional about it. And then if you do consume it, because it's a bigger commitment, it's like 45 minutes or whatever, you will be more intentional about consuming it. And then even though fewer people might engage with it, it's like a higher quality kind of interaction.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So that's kind of where my mind went with that.
And that's why that'd be the main source of my travels would be the podcast. And I'm sort of half debating to do like a little YouTube account as well on the side, but only like one episode a week. Nothing too like strenuous.
Yeah. I mean, you say only, but that's a lot of work.
Yeah, I know. Trust me. Yeah. I know how long it takes to do that other podcast, the coffee podcast, right? I know a 7-minute video, not including recording, actually doing the actual thing, like just putting it together is an hour. And I could probably do more. Just depends how anal you want to be about it, and like adding stuff in, clipping it, adding it all in. I'm fully like aware that shit, that's gonna take a lot of time. But there's an upside if you're traveling long-term travel. Well, there's no time constraint, so why can't you do it?
Yeah.
You know, if you've got 6 days of traveling, checking shit out, and the 7th day is content creation, maybe doing a bit of work you've got on the side, why not?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I'm definitely not like completely like time free, if that makes sense. Like that's the goal. I'd love to set myself up with passive income and all these things. But at the moment I do still trade time for money, sadly. So it's not like 6 days of exploring willy-nilly. Like I do have work to do and stuff, but I get what you mean. Like it just feeds into like the balance of the lifestyle. For me, the biggest thing is like I just don't want to be taken out of the moment. Like
yes, absolutely.
With travel, like experiences are so raw. And so like you blink and you miss it. Or especially if you're with people, you know, then it's just like rude to be on your phone and be like, oh, let me get this content for you. And I never want to put the content above the experience.
Yeah, that's key. You're absolutely right. Like even last night, Jim Jeffries concert, people on their phones. I'm like, what are you doing? You paid upwards of $100 for this ticket. Don't sit on your phone. Watch the bloody show. That's another weird thing I saw last night. And the last bit of the section before we will get to Indonesia is, like you say, you do make an income on the road. So what type of stuff are you doing just to keep things going?
It varies. I get bored very easily, so I like to do a range of things. I have accepted that I don't think I will ever be a specialist, but being a generalist is pretty great. So, I mean, rather, I should say, I've been on the road full time for coming up to 3.5 years. And for the first year and a half of that, I was, the math is not going to math. I don't know exactly how long. Basically, I had this fully remote job for about a year and 7-8 months. And I was working as the head of marketing for this tech company. And it was, a normal full-time job, except for the boss was like, I don't care where you are. And we also didn't have office hours. It was just like, we had certain meetings, like we had one growth meeting a week, and I had a one-on-one with the boss the weeks in between. But other than that, it was kind of like you would all just kind of like agree deadlines, and as long as you did your stuff, as long as you were like,
Dream.
keeping it going, like they didn't really care. And it was so chill.
Yeah.
And I think more and more companies are becoming like this. I mean, they are predominantly in the tech space, but
Yeah.
it's nice to see the tide changing.
Yeah.
So that was the job. I got that job just before the pandemic. And then I was in it for like a year and 8 months. And then I quit that and I freelanced for a US based like organization in event management. I was like event manager kind of thing for their online conferences, which was super interesting because there was a lot of transferable skills from marketing into that, but it tapped into also like a project manager side, which was really like satisfying for me. So I was with them for 6 months doing that, and then I gave myself like a 6 month sabbatical. Like I gave myself I was lucky that through those two jobs I was able to save up a lot. Like, I mean, as we've discussed, I'm also very good at keeping my costs extremely low, so I could save up quite fast. And then I decided, okay, 6 months, just enjoy. Like, because even though I had mad freedom with that full-time job, I still needed an internet connection, right?
Yeah.
And like, I wanted to push the travel envelope even further, and I wanted to go to completely remote places. I wanted to go to places where there might not be internet. It's a job that gets really stressful really fast. You're like, oh, I need to do this for a meeting. Oh my God. So I was like, I just don't want to do that. And that's when I quit. And I've just come out of those 6 months a couple months ago. And now I freelance as a science writer. So I have a couple of clients and I write about science and technology, and they pay me for my articles.
Nice.
Yeah. And I'm always experimenting. Like now that TikTok, I've kind of learned a little bit about TikTok. Now I'm trying to like pitch myself to some brands to do their TikToks. And yeah, I don't know. I really don't know where this is going for me, but like, that's okay. Like,
yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Cover my costs with these random freelance bits and bobs, and like, it's cool.
Nice. Okay. Because I want to get to Indonesia.
Cool.
Because you've been there recently. So I don't know if you saw something that I posted or I found you. I don't know how we found each other, but I was like, I fucking hate Bali. So you went there to, I guess, travel and live for a bit. So I want to know, it's been 10 years since I've been and I didn't like it. How did you find it when you flew over to Indonesia? Was that the first place that you got to?
Interesting. Yeah. So the way that I remember how we met, I don't remember how I found you originally. I found you months ago and I followed you. And then I saw you post something on your story saying, if anyone's going to Indonesia, I'd like to interview you for a podcast. Like if you're going anywhere except Bali. Yeah. And at that point, I hadn't gone anywhere else yet, but I was planning to. So I told you if I do end up going,
that's it. Yeah.
Let's talk.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so I knew that it was this nomad mecca, but I was also extremely skeptical because I was like, I have some kind of feeling about what this is going to be like, and I have a feeling that I'm not going to like it.
Yeah.
I had heard that it was very much like a place that you either love it or you hate it. So I was curious because I also didn't want to like assume anything, right? I was like, maybe you will love it. Who knows? So the first thing that like I noticed when I got there was that it didn't look how I expected. Like I arrived, those crazy hectic streets of Denpasar, going through Kuta, I was staying in Canggu. So like, surprise. So like, I don't know what I expected. I guess I expected it to be a bit more charming in terms of infrastructure, but then it was just like no sidewalks, chaos, noise, like shacks along the side of the road, for, like all the like little shops and stuff. And I was like, okay, like, I mean, it's fine. It's just not what I expected, but like, that's fine. That's kind of the cool thing about travel is that you're constantly like confronting your expectations and internal thoughts of things. So that was cool. But like, I very quickly kind of saw, and I went through a wave of emotions with Bali. Like I went up and down and all around. And first I was extremely disappointed. First I was like, okay, there is a lot of sort of what at the time I called it like lifestyle colonialization. And what now I guess it's just like extreme gentrification. There's just so much stuff around Canggu in that area that's just like for Westerners, and like it's made by Westerners and it's run by Westerners and the customers are Westerners and the servers are the locals. And that is an incredibly uncomfortable place to be. I just saw it as kind of like a two-class society. And these are like my raw hot takes from like the first few days. So while I'm thinking all this, I'm also extremely aware that I'm very new here and I don't know the nuances and blah, blah, blah. But my first impression was there didn't seem to be a lot of mixing between like Indonesians and non-Indonesians, I guess immigrants. So yeah, that kind of upset me. I was like, well, that kind of sucks because I'd never been confronted with it in such a brutally contrasting way before. Of course, gentrification happens everywhere, but I'd never seen it so strongly. That was sort of like my first impression.
What's the plan? Just to kind of stay there for a bit? Like, did you plan to stay there for a month, or were you just going to see how it goes and just, if you didn't like it, get out, or were you planning to maybe do some work there and just chill out there for a bit?
Yeah, so I booked a ticket there, and then I had a ticket out to Australia from Bali 6 weeks later. But
Okay.
for those 6 weeks, I didn't have a plan. I didn't
Yeah.
necessarily, and it wasn't again, typical me, do first and think later. I didn't check the visa stuff, so I didn't realize until after I'd booked it that actually I would need to do a visa run because you're
Yes.
only allowed to be there for 30 days, but
Yeah.
I
30
was going to be
days.
there
Yeah.
for like 45 days or something like that. So,
Yeah.
and I couldn't be bothered with the headache of paperwork and extending. I was like, I'd rather just use the opportunity to go see another country or something. So,
Mm.
and again, I didn't know what country that would be. I think I literally booked my exiting flight in the queue at immigration when I arrived. So, yeah, I booked the flight to Kuala Lumpur. So yeah, what ended up happening was I was in Bali for 3 weeks, and then I went to Kuala Lumpur for a week, and then by complete coincidence found out a friend of mine from my master's was in Singapore, and he was like, "Oh, come." I was like, "All right." So I went on a bus from Kuala Lumpur to Singapore. I was there for a few days, stayed with him, and then from Singapore flew to East Java, and then went back to Bali, and then to Australia.
Okay. That's a nice little trip. That. Yeah. Big fan of
Yeah,
that.
it was a very nice trip, but the whole thing was improvised. Even when I was in Kuala Lumpur, I didn't know how long I'd be there. I just woke up one morning and I was like, "Okay, I'm kind of done with this. Is there a bus later today?" "Yeah, there is." "Okay, great. $5?
That's,
All right, let's go."
oh, awesome, awesome, awesome. And also for Indonesia, when I was there, it was super cheap. Bali might be an exception. Bali might even be more expensive than the rest of Indonesia, but I don't know because I've not been.
It's more expensive than Java for sure, or East Java at least.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And you've got some notes here that I'm very keen to see and hear about. Appreciation.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, sure. So like remember I told you I went on those waves of emotions.
Yeah.
I was first very jaded, and when I arrived in Bali, I really didn't want to be like I really didn't want to like contribute to any kind of like I don't know I don't know what the word for it is. Like I didn't want to be tone deaf about anything. I was very curious. I wanted to like
Mhm.
learn about the culture and about the customs and like get to know locals. Like this is always
Yeah.
my goal, right? And so actually I had planned to couch surf. And I set myself a goal of like trying to couch surf those whole 6 weeks. And I didn't fully succeed, but I did pretty well. The first place where I landed in Bali, I ended up staying with this musician and videographer guy from, I think from Central Java, but he'd been living in Bali for the last 10 years. And I was very curious to hear his thoughts on how the place had changed since he first landed there
Yeah.
10 years ago,
Mm.
what his opinions on like the over tourism is, like if the standard of living had improved for him and for his friends and for,
Yeah.
like people are always talking about, oh, but tourism is good because it brings money to the local economy and like they can like pull
Mhm.
themselves out of poverty and blah 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 blah. And he was very, and I mean, I talked to a few people about this and opinions varied across people as opinions normally do.
Yeah.
So some people were like, no, it's great. Like, I love that there's tourists. Like, it's a really fantastic thing. I love being able to meet people from all over the world. And I did find from an economic standpoint, if the person was a business owner, they loved the tourists. If they were an employee, they hated the tourists.
Okay.
Massively generalizing. And I
Yeah.
think could obviously be wrong. It's because, when you're a business owner, more tourists equals more money
Yeah.
for you personally.
Just based on money.
But when you're not, right, then it doesn't translate to that. And like, so then that means that assumption of tourism is good for the economy. No, it's good for the businesses. It's
Mm.
good for the businesses, and that money stays there. It doesn't trickle down to the employees. So
Mm.
not everybody gets a boost. It's a minority of people who get a boost
Yeah.
from the tourism.
Yeah. Yeah.
The guy that I stayed with was telling me how, for example, the tradition in Bali for funerals is that you have the funeral at the beach. And he's like, but the thing is that these big conglomerates are coming and they're buying up all this beach space to build private resorts and villas and hotels and whatever. And now us local people, to mourn our dead, like we have to go do it in some place which is not befitting our tradition. And it's like
Yeah.
really shitty, And I was like,
Yeah.
dude, that is really shitty. Like that sucks. So that was that was my first impression. But then the appreciation came a little bit later because, I did start seeing that in some elements there were like overlaps between locals and like expats, immigrants, where more and more people I met from Indonesia that were there. Actually, I didn't really meet many people from Bali. Most of them were from Sumatra or from different parts of
Okay.
Java.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they had moved there to get a job, either to get a job because there's more money to be made because of the tourists, or because they wanted to live like a more liberal lifestyle. Because Bali is,
Yes.
whereas most of Indonesia is quite conservatively Muslim.
Yeah.
So these were people who were like, I don't want to live that way. I don't want that kind of like strictness and whatever. I just want to be a bit like, a bit more, I don't know, loose with myself and like enjoy and like, I don't know, drink or like party or whatever. And so those kinds of people also came to Bali from other islands. And that's where I started seeing an appreciation, because I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. Like, they're really excited about meeting foreign people, like in a genuine way. They really want to, like, I don't know, learn about your culture. And people are mixing a lot in the nightlife and stuff. Like, you would see people in bars and clubs and stuff that were all mixed up. So that was nice, and I appreciated that.
Yeah.
And then the third phase of this emotional roller coaster came in, which was the frustration. And again, these are like only in certain circumstances, right? Like, I was in Bali for 3 weeks, and by the end of the 3 weeks, I was really ready to leave. I was really like overstimulated. I think I was experiencing a bit of travel burnout. Because people are always trying to sell you stuff, especially like the motor taxis. I was so done. Like, you walk 2 steps and someone comes up and they're like, motor taxi, do you want a motor taxi? And I'm like, no, I have to fend them off. Like, it really was just a bit much. And it was really about, for me, it became kind of like a practice in trying to like honor and validate my like frustration with the situation, with like, oh my God, you see me like a money bag and blah, blah, blah. And just like, leave me alone, let me walk for like 5 minutes, holding that and validating that for me, and not like trying to like talk myself out of feeling that way or feeling bad about feeling that way. But at the same time, like holding compassion for them and their situation, and understanding that like, but I kind of am a money bag in some sense, like from some perspective. And like, if the positions were switched, you know, if I was the one who needed like a passenger on my motor taxi so I could like take care of my family, I might also be like pestering people all the time, being like, oh, please take a taxi ride, blah, blah, blah. Like, and I don't say that to like demean them or degrade them in any way, but it's just like another perspective that could possibly be true. Like, I tried to chat to the the drivers as much as I could. And one of them told me that he drives from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., 6 days a week, to be able to like feed his like 14-month-old daughter. And I was like, damn, okay, yeah, I will tip you for sure.
yeah. I got pestered
so
so much in Bali. That's weird, because we went to Southeast Asia before, right? Bangkok can be pretty bad. It's way western now, like compared to what it was 10 years ago. But Bali was a different level, and I think that got to us. And it was really strange. You talk about impressions about Bali, what you're expecting, right? I was expecting like a little paradise, because don't forget, in 2012, when I was booking this trip, no Instagram, Facebook was barely a thing, no smartphones really. So I wasn't like conditioned by what I saw on Instagram like you are now. You see Bali on Instagram now, you think it's like the best place since sliced bread, right? So I was going, even I've heard people say, oh, it's amazing. But when I got there, like I can't even imagine what it's like now. But back then I was like, bloody hell, like super conservative country as a whole. Landing in Kuta, fucking hell, there's like needles on the beach. There's like people offering you drugs. I'm like, oh, what is this place? I didn't expect this to be a thing. And like Aussie bars everywhere, and like pissed up 18-year-olds. Like Brits go to like Greece or Spain and get boozed up when they're 18, 19. Aussie groups there as well. I was like, oh no, this is not what I was expecting. So it really was a letdown. Yeah, and you make some good points though. Like, being older now, I'd want to maybe go and speak to some locals and meet some locals, really. But I found it really hard where we stay in Cute to meet any locals, because they're all just like serving us to an extent. Yeah,
exactly. And that's an uncomfortable dynamic to be in. And I mean, I was really lucky that like that first guy that I couch surfed with, I was with him for 3 days, and he was a musician, and he took me to like a musical jam night that he was a part of. And so there I met more musicians, also all locals. And then I got on with one of them really well. And then I was like, oh, I'm looking for a place to stay. Do any of your friends like have space? Like whatever. Like, I never expect anything from people, but at the same time, like, there's no harm in asking. So like, I will always ask what I need. You know what I mean? And then they're always free to say no. So like, I was like, yeah, I need a place for like 2 nights. Like, I don't know if you have space, or like if you know someone who maybe does, and whatever. And it turned out that they did, and they ended up letting me stay for like, actually worked out really well, because they worked also as a videographer, and they were shooting like, I think a movie or like a TV show or something in another part of the island. And he was going to be gone for like 6 days, and his house was just going to sit empty. So he was like, actually, it's perfect. Why don't you stay? You can feed my cats.
Awesome.
And I was like, okay, sick, cool. He left me his motorbike, everything. And I was like, oh, dude. Nice. So, yeah, I don't know. It just kind of snowballed. I feel like you just need one in, and then it just like network effects. Like, I ended up spending I actually didn't really meet any expats when I was there, because I was just like, yeah, I mean, like, these guys just would spend their afternoons like going to the beach for sunset, sitting outside of like a surf bar and playing guitar and just like singing along like reggae songs, or like the guy bought a cajon at one point, and I'm a drummer, so they were like, oh, get on the cajon, and I did, and they were like,
nice.
And we would just sit there and jam for like hours, and we did this like most days. So this is how I pass the time.
I'd love to do
And
that. That'd be
it was
awesome.
really, really fun. Or if they had like a live show at some bar in Seminyak or whatever, like they'd be like, "Oh, we're playing on Wednesday. Come, Juju, come." I'm like, "Okay, I will be there."
Yeah.
And yeah, it was very cool. Feeding me Iraq left, right, and center.
Yeah. I'm really glad to hear that you actually mixed in with the locals,
Oh yeah,
because I think,
yeah,
I don't know if you found this, but when you hear people on Instagram or talk about it, or even Instagram, you put Bali in, right? All you're going to see is that's like paradise, but also it's all drawn up by what I would maybe say is digital nomads. Actually, there's quite a lot who are based there,
yeah,
and they draw this picture of what it's like to live there. But I think people would get pretty shocked if they land in Q2. It was like, oh god, I didn't expect this.
yeah.
But I don't know if you found that there's two parts to it. There's maybe the locals that you experience, which is great, but the other half is this expat community, which I don't know where they're based on Bali, but I'd imagine a lot of people would know each other on the island that are
Yes.
westernized, but don't actually go in to speak to the locals.
Yeah, I don't know. I hesitate to speak on that just because, like I said, I didn't interact with expats so much, so I
Mm,
don't know. And I don't want to just be cynical and be like, yeah, they're all separate and all the expats suck. And because I mean, that can't be true. Like that can't be true.
can't be true.
It would
Hopefully,
be quite
yeah.
arrogant of me to say so. And actually, one of my good friends, um, from that first London office job that I had in the startup, he now lives in Bali
Ah,
with his wife full time, and they've lived there since the pandemic. Actually, they were
yeah.
in Thailand and went to Bali for a visa run and got locked down on their 2 week visa run and ended up just turning lemons into lemonade. And now they have a house, they have a dog, like everything, and they weren't planning to, but they just settled down there and they love it. So it was cool to see them
Mm,
and like see how they move in those spaces, and they very much do interact with a lot of locals. Like they're making efforts with the language,
yeah, that's good.
which
Yeah.
I think is wonderful. Yeah. So I mean, actually, not wonderful. It's kind of like minimum. If you stay there for years, like it's kind of expected. But
I wonder though, with the amount of people expats going there, would it make it a really like, expensive place though? Eventually, I don't know.
yes, it is. And the price is going up insanely much. Like I had a
Mm,
friend there, German friend of mine that happened to be there same time as me. So we hung out a little bit, and um he was staying in guest houses and he was, doing the typical stuff. Like
yeah,
I tried to stay away as much as I could. And like so it was cool to see it from his perspective, I guess. He was like the proxy for me to get an eye on that kind
yeah.
of way of in Bali. And like he rented his guest room for 1 month for like 5 million rupiah. And then, which, oh my God, don't ask me to convert it now. I don't know. And then for comparison, one of the places where I stayed, an apartment where I stayed, was the local guy was paying 700,000 for the month.
Oh
So it's
wow.
almost 10 times as much for a tourist, right?
Whoa.
To give you some kind of sense.
Yeah.
He, from 1 month to the next, they raised the price to 7.5 million. That's how fast the prices are going up. And he was like, nope, I'm out. That's insane.
Whoa. Crazy.
The thing is that if you convert that to like, compare it to like, I don't know what you would pay in Western Europe for rent,
Mm,
it still comes out much less. So it's interesting how in one part of the world we're willing to pay for that much, and in another part of the world we're not willing to pay for that much.
mm.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
my question wasn't really from like an expat point of view. Imagine if you're Balinese, and you're like, oh fuck, all the prices are going up, and it's not even your
Ah, I see.
fault. Like
Yes. Yeah.
it's just because everyone's moving there. All these like digital nomads, because you can get a digital nomad visa in Indonesia now, so you can just go to Bali and set up shop. And I just wonder if you're bringing a Western income to the
Yes.
island, that's going to drive up prices, and it might even drive all locals back. They came to Bali, they might have to go back to Java or Sumatra, wherever they came from, just to live. I don't know if that's going to be
Right.
a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a big issue. In all nomad hotspots, it's a double-edged sword. Like it's something that
Mm,
isn't like digital nomadism. I don't think is something inherently good or inherently bad. Like anything, it matters how you handle it. And I
yeah,
think that there's an opportunity for governments and policymakers and nomads and local communities to all work together to like, God, I sound like a politician. Jesus Christ. And we will pave the way for greatness. No.
yeah,
um, there's an opportunity there to like build something that works for everybody as much as it can. And I think that if it is neglected, it will become, because in this world that we're in, whether you like it or not, money wins. And like, if you don't act strategically and tactfully early on, it will turn into that. And then we're going to have like a Brave New World type situation, which is really shit. And like, then of course the locals are going to be pissed, and like, digital nomads are going to just be like this hated group of people. There are already people who hate anyone who calls themselves a digital nomad. They think it's
yeah,
pretentious and annoying and like rude and unethical and all this. And I'm like, it can be for
mm,
sure, but it doesn't have to be.
yeah,
So yeah, I don't know. We're still in the infancy of this, and sadly, like these prices are moving very fast.
Yeah, because when I was talking to Sandre about it, he said a big group, one group of people who buy his insurance are living in Bali. That's like a big
Hmm.
group that he has there. I wasn't surprised at that. But the only thing I was thinking when he was talking about their project of making the global passport, and you don't have to have visas to go anywhere, you can just join his community online and that'll be enough to work. I was thinking, well, at the minute, if that was across the board, right, there's no visa, right, you can go and work anywhere, which you can technically. If you've got a laptop and you can work, you can go to any tourist visa country and just live and just work, right? You don't have to pay tax in that country. Well, why would you go somewhere like Norway when it's fucking expensive, when actually you can go to Sumatra and live like a king on the same wage? So I was thinking, but all these people are never going to digitally nomad work in a Western country because they're going to find it too expensive. They're going to go east to Asia, right? Or Africa.
Right.
And I was
Right.
thinking, how'd you get over that problem? I don't know. I just a lot of thoughts about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think one, I don't know how this fits in as like a solution, but it feels like it's adjacent to the conversation, which is like what I see a lot of the times is, people will offer, like companies or individuals who are hiring for anything, right, will tend to want to pay based on what is a normal wage in the place where their future employee is based. That sounds so complicated. What I mean is, like,
Okay.
if
Yeah,
you
yeah.
if you're a company and you're hiring developers and you're hiring developers from the Philippines, you're going to pay them a Filipino wage, which is going to be much less than what you're going to pay a New York-based developer,
Yeah.
right? I think this needs to change. I think that if
Yes.
someone is bringing value to your business, you pay them based on the value they bring, period. If I am the one in New York and you're paying me X and I choose to up and leave and go to Thailand or whatever, my pay should stay the same. Similarly, the person in the Philippines should make a New York wage.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
period. Like,
Mm.
because we've gone from like a time based and a geography based economy, let's say, where like as in people's time is worth X money, or where people live translates to X amount being the average wage. I think
Mm.
we're moving to, or at least I think we should move to, a more value based
Yeah.
economy where it's like, pay me based on what I do for you, not how long it takes me or where I live or any other things that like can change at any time.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Even here, when you come to get a permanent residency, which we have got in Canada now, one of the requirements is 1 year Canadian work experience. I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? Like, if you're
Mm.
from India and you've been managing a team for 10 years successfully, you can't
Mm.
get this PR because you've not had 1 year working in Canada. Like, what does that even mean? But it's a
Mm.
problem. People have to work here a year first. They're probably doing a shitty job that they're overqualified for just to get that 1 year ticked off in the box. Crap
It's
rule.
so patronizing.
Yeah,
It's
patronizing.
patronizing.
It's awful. It's, yeah, discrimination, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awful.
To finish on Indonesia, Java as a
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
Don't know too much about it. How did you find that?
It was cool. It was cool. I was in two parts. I went to Malang, which is one of the main towns, and then I went to Banyuwangi. I hope I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
Which is like all the way on the east side, like right on the water. So you can get a ferry from Banyuwangi to like the westernmost part of Bali, and it only
Mm.
takes like, I don't know, just under an hour or something. It's very close.
Yeah.
So those two places, like Java has a very different feel than Bali. There are almost no like foreigners there. There's no tourists, not really. And there I did stay in hostels. And first of all, yes, it was much cheaper than Bali.
Mm.
Even like hostels were like half the price than what the hostels in Bali
Yeah.
are. Because there's not a lot of people around. Like I think in Bali, before I was saying it can get a bit intense with like trying to sell to you and all this kind of stuff.
Mm.
Like it's kind of like, I mean, anything, it's a learned behavior, right? Like,
Yeah.
and because there aren't so many tourists in East Java, that's not there yet. So like the way they treat you is completely different. Super curious, super friendly, super open. Like, I'll tell you a quick story that kind of encapsulates it. I went for a walk from my hostel. I needed to get some food and I wanted to go to like a Warung, get some, local flavors.
Yeah.
So I was just walking around and I was like, when I see the right one, I'll know it and I'll just go to it and get some food. So I walk. I eventually found one and I was like, okay, great. I think it was nasi pecel or something, and I hadn't seen that before. And I was like, okay, cool, I'm going to try this. I have no idea what it is, which is always like a Russian roulette kind of game.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, nasi pecel. I haven't tried this yet. It's delicious, by the way. If you haven't tried it, so good.
Yeah, never heard of it. Okay.
And I go up and I tell the woman, I just kind of, I mean, I assume she doesn't speak English, so I just kind of point to like on the sign what I want. Eventually, I think she was like really excited that like an English speaker was there or like a foreigner was there.
Mm.
She ran to the back to get a guy. I assume it's like her husband or her brother or something. I don't know. And he comes out and he doesn't speak English, so he gets on the phone and he calls someone. And I'm like just sitting there waiting for my food. Like I'm like I don't know what's going on. Like this is all happening in the background. I didn't
Yeah.
realize this was going on until this guy comes to me with his phone and he gives me his phone and he's like take it, like here, like nudging me sort of to take it. I don't know what he wants, so I'm like taking this phone. I don't know who's on the other end. I don't know what they want. I have no idea. So I'm like, hello, and the guy speaks back to me like in pretty good English, being like, hello, like I'm this guy's brother, like welcome to this warung. Like he was fully being like, what can we do for you? Like, how long are you here? Where are you staying? What do you need? If you need anything, you call me. This is my name.
Wow.
Here is my number. Like he was fully like, going for it. And I was like, oh wow,
That's awesome.
What a welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was like, I'm in Jakarta right now, so I can't help you, but I will be, when are you leaving Malang? I will be back on this day. Maybe we can meet.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah. That's what you want. That's what you want, that like local interaction, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a huge surprise. Like it came out of nowhere. And then when the food came out and the woman gave me my food, she was like smiling a lot. And she took out her camera and started taking pictures of me in their warung with their food.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah.
Asked me to say something and made a video of me saying something. I just went along with it. I mean, it was a little bit uncomfortable. I was like, I just really want to eat and then go back to my hostel. But at the same time, I was like, this is pretty great. Like watching this all happen, it was cool.
The language they speak, I guess, is it Indonesian? Is that it must be Indonesian, right? Or
Bahasa,
okay.
Bahasa is the like national language, but then like every island has like their own.
I was like to say, must have their own dialect there, surely.
Yeah, so like Balinese is kind of like a different language. I don't even think it's a dialect. I think it is like a different language.
Okay.
And then in Java, like Javanese is also a different.
Javanese, okay.
I think so, yeah. But yeah.
And you said super keen, no tourists there. So I think this is where I think travelers need to get to these places that got no tourists. This is why Indonesia is so, it piques my interest, because there's so many different islands, isn't there, you can go to.
Yeah.
Now don't go to Bali. I mean, you can go to Bali, but like, it's the cliche place to go. Like, I don't think you get too much out of it. I reckon you go to Java or Sumatra or somewhere.
Yeah, or Florida.
Pick an island and just go and check it out.
I'll see the Komodo dragons.
Yeah. Even Lombok next door to Bali, which is gaining a bit more popularity, even that will probably still be a bit more authentic.
Although I will say, I always made a point to ask people which island they were from when I met them, because I mean, it's you shouldn't assume that they're from the place where you meet them. And so I always asked, and they would talk about, oh, my family's back in this island, my family's back in that island, throwing names at me that I never heard of. And I was like, oh, cool. So like, do you think I should visit this island? And a lot of them would say like, no, because it's not safe to go alone. Like it's actively dangerous. Like one guy was telling me, I can't remember the name of the island. It was like Seoul or something that sounded like Seoul. I can't remember what it was, but he was like, no, it's like really dangerous. Like if you come with me and we go together, like sure, but like there's places that you don't go at night. There's places that you don't go as a girl alone. Like you just don't, because there's like mafia and like all this stuff. And I was like, really? God. So there is an element of safety to consider. I mean, these places are tourist places for a reason, I guess. But equally, like there's more than just Bali for sure. Actually, they did tell me that about Java. Like my friends that I made in Bali were like, don't go to Java alone, because not because it's unsafe and like dangerous, but because like they didn't think I was gonna have a good time, because they were like, people are not used to foreigners, people aren't used to tourists, they don't know how to act. So you're gonna get a lot of people staring at you, you're gonna get people taking photos of you, you're gonna get basically like bothering you. Because like a novelty, and like you might not have a good time, and also it's very conservative. So like for a girl to be by herself is kind of weird, because normally you're with like your boyfriend or your father or whatever. And they just didn't think I was gonna have a good time. But I was like, all the more reason to go.
Yeah. If someone tells you that,
as long as it's not like actively dangerous to my physical self, like sure, let's try it. And I'm glad I went, because I got to see that side of things, and it was cool.
So you would recommend Java as an island to go and check out if you're think about going to Indonesia?
Definitely. And it's not like it's completely devoid of infrastructure. Like there are tour groups going to do stuff. And all the travelers I did meet in my hostel were kind of all on the same circuit in Java. It's just that there's a lot fewer of them, So there is still like a, let's say, tourist trail in Java, and things that everybody kind of goes and does, like the Bromo volcano, or like the Ijen crater in Banyuwangi. Like those are two things that I did that pretty much everybody that I met did.
Cool. Good recommendations. I like that. Argentina, Patagonia. So you're there for 2 months this year?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm actually going back in 2 weeks.
No way. Oh wow. Are you?
Yeah.
Oh, you'll be there when this is released. So
cool.
That's gonna be interesting. Yeah. So tell listeners, like, why are you going back? Like, is it that good?
It is that good. I actually love it. It's
Yeah.
no, really, I freaking love Argentina so much. And I mean, it also doesn't hurt that like that guy that I hitchhiked with, we're now kind of together. So
Oh, okay.
it's
Right.
nice to go back. It's gonna be cool to go back to him after 6 months of being
Yeah.
apart. So yeah, but I fell in love with Argentina before I met him. I just want to caveat that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a wonderful place. The people are so friendly, like epic
Mm,
people. I feel a lot of kinship to them because they remind me a lot of Serbian people.
okay.
Um, there's a lot of uncanny similarities between the two cultures to the point where I was there like Googling about like the history, if there is any kind of connection, if there was some mass migration or if like,
Right.
I don't know, something. But yeah, there's a lot of cultural similarities like yeah, in the music and also in like phrases that people use and also in the attitude towards like friendships and socialization and life.
Mm.
And so it was a comfortable place to be for me from that perspective. My Spanish is also pretty good, so communicating with
Oh,
locals was
okay.
like quite easy. I'd say, I mean, I'm not fluent, but like I can
Yeah.
get by quite well,
Yeah.
have full on conversations and stuff. So that definitely helps. Because outside of Buenos Aires, it's not a guarantee that people will speak English. In
Yeah.
Patagonia, definitely not.
Yeah. No, of course not.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it was amazing. I was in Buenos Aires for a month in total. But then I was also in Patagonia for 2 months total. 1 month in one village, just doing lots of hiking, and then
Yeah.
1 month hitchhiking with this guy up all the way up to Bariloche, which is kind of like the northernmost part of Patagonia.
The bit where you stayed in the one village, is that just doing like 2 or 3 day hike trips, then come back to the village? That was your base.
This village has such a special place in my heart. It's incredible.
What's it
It's
called?
called it's called El Chalten,
Okay.
and it's like population 500. It's called like the hiking capital of Argentina or
Oh, okay.
Patagonia. I can't remember,
Yeah.
but it's basically like the if you want to trek, like this is your jumping off. It's a village inside the national park, so you don't really have to like pay entry or like do anything like once you're in the village. You literally just like walk off the end of the village road and you're in the mountains. And so then you just keep going and going, going. And it's beautiful. Like it's insane. There's like it's really well organized. There's lots of like camping grounds around. You can literally just set up at any designated camping ground. There are lots of circuits that you can do. And I wasn't even hiking every day. Like I was hiking every couple days. I didn't do any multi-day hikes, sadly.
Okay.
When I go back, I will. But
Yeah.
at that time, it was just the day hikes. I did camp like in a few campgrounds, but it wasn't like camp, hike, camp
Got
in
it.
another place.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it was beautiful. And like the cool thing was that you'd go out, you'd be hiking all day, and then you'd come back to the village. And because it was literally like one street and a few blocks wide, you would just bump into people all the time that
Of course.
were there.
Yeah.
And there was such a lit nightlife. Like, oh my gosh, there was a party in a different bar every other. There was like three bars or so that always had the parties on rotation, and people throw it back. Like people party until 5, 6 in the morning.
Classic Argentinians, that.
You wake up in the morning and you're destroyed, and they're like, okay, we're going on a hike now. And yeah, I don't remember how it happened. I also was very lucky in the sense that I fell in with locals there too. So that was it. I was in I went on a little hike by myself one day. Just I don't know, I was feeling a bit low, and I thought if I just go for a walk, I'll feel better. And I saw a dude sitting at this viewpoint on like the top of like a bunch of rocks, and I was like, that's my dude. Like this guy seems cool. So I went up the rocks also for like the view, but then started chatting to him, and turns out he was a mountain guide in the area who'd been living there for 7 years.
Oh, wow.
And he was like, do you want to go for a walk? I was like, let's go for a walk. Because we were planning to hike the same direction. So I was like, oh, let's just go together. We ended up hiking. We were planning to hike 4 kilometers there and back. So like 8 in total. We ended up hiking for like over 25 kilometers together.
Wow.
And then we hitchhiked back. And then from then on, me and him just hung out. He would like take me on all these different trails, show me like hidden waterfalls that like you really couldn't find unless you knew where they were. Like that was really cool. And then he told me in the gymnasium, there's volleyball every Tuesday and Thursday. And I was like, okay, cool. I used to play volleyball a lot. Like, let's go. And I went there, met more locals there, and just like ended up staying at their houses and like working in their kiosks, helping out. Like, you know, I slept in the back of a kiosk for 3 nights. Like, I don't know. It was just like very cool vibes, like very nice place. When I left, I actually cried on the bus out. I cried, and that doesn't happen to me. I don't get emotional about it. Yeah, it was amazing.
Oh, that's like the proper local experience, isn't it? Yeah,
it was so good. Yeah.
Okay, have to go. And you're going back in the summer, I guess, because they're switched, aren't they? In terms of the season, you don't want to be there maybe in the winter, right? Because that'd be quite harsh.
Now, when I go back, it'll be spring going into summer. But when I was there, I was in Patagonia until May. So yeah, like the beginning of winter. And like, yeah, we saw snow. It was cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Patagonia's on my list. A lot of people either choose Chile or Argentina, right? But I guess they're both roughly the same.
They say that Chile is more impressive in terms of like mountains being more pointy and like taller, like steeper and taller and things like that. But the time that I was there, they still had like quite hectic entry requirements for COVID. Like you had to warn the Chilean government like a month in advance that you were planning to go, and then you had to get approval, and like it was a whole thing. So I was like, I'll just not do that now. It's a headache.
Yeah, fair enough. Cool. So the last mini subject before we get onto the travel feature questions. You did start a podcast in Indonesia called Belonging Abroad Podcast, but you are revamping that and kind of rewriting what you want to do with that.
Yeah.
So what's your thinking there?
Yeah. So, I mean, it originally just started as like literally something that I wanted to have to document my travels because I'm really bad at like keeping a travel diary as much as I think I would love to. I never actually do it.
The practicalities. You think you're good doing it? Nah, it's tough.
Yeah. And it's a shame because the idea came because I started realizing that I've started forgetting details about my travels from the beginning of my travel time. And I really don't want to forget anything. I want to capture it. So like, obviously in a journal, it's not going to happen. I mean, I shared like we were talking about before we officially went on the record. I used to share a lot on my Instagram. Oh no, we even talked about it in the podcast. A lot on Instagram and stuff, but that kind of takes you out of the present moment, and you know, it's kind of short form and very consumable, like we talked about. So I don't know. And I landed on a podcast as like a possible optimal way to communicate this and also document it. And I didn't have any kind of intention of like doing anything with it other than just like having it for myself and my family and friends and whatever. So I just kind of started with no real plan. I had no idea about podcasting, completely self-taught myself how to do all this. And it was cool. The editing took me such a long time. So I did a few episodes of that and just, I don't know, like I had a travel burnout. I was really like needing to do nothing for a little bit. And so the podcast fell by the wayside, but now I'm picking it back up slowly and I'm revamping it. Like you said, I'm going to move it away from like me just talking and I'm hoping to do more like interview based stuff. And that's going to be two pronged approach. Like on the one hand, I want to interview like, cause I have a lot of friends that are also like full-time nomads. And I think like to the point we were talking about before, it's important for people who might be interested in this lifestyle, but you know, like I was when I was a teenager, might be interested, but don't know how to start, or it feels really overwhelming, or it feels really like impossible to grasp, like, oh, but that's only for a certain type of person, or whatever it may be. Like maybe they don't resonate with me, but maybe they resonate with some friend that I might have that I could have on an interview, and they could be a totally different type of traveler with a totally different type of skill set and job and whatever. And maybe the listener might see themselves in them instead. So I want to really like have that representation across the board and show like, hey, look, this full-time travel thing it's not one type of person that does this. Like there are so many different ways to do it, and you can really make it your own. And then on the flip side, I also want to incorporate, this actually was inspired by my time in Bali, interviews with locals in wherever I go. Still trying to figure out how to work around possible language barriers and stuff. But because I think like, you know, travel is such a like overly, not a very like representative space, let's say. Like it's a lot of like white girls going around just sort of like talking about, I went here and this is what I saw. And it's like, that's cool. That has value in one way. But like, what about just passing the microphone to the people who are there and the people who live there, the people who grew up there, and what is their experience?
Exactly.
Know?
Yeah. It has to be the way.
Have it be a bit more like travel journalism, maybe. That's the idea I have right now. But in terms of any more details than that, I don't know yet.
No, that's great. That's great. I think you're going in the right direction. Yeah. Like even for Greece in December, I'm now trying to arrange some locals, right? Just trying to get them to come on the podcast and talk about, you know, how do they see life there and what's the best thing to go and see that maybe you don't read or hear about.
Nice. I love that. I can't wait to listen to that episode.
You should do a Spanish one.
Put me on the spot right there.
Or the Latin America, like get your Spanish one on the go. It's huge.
I didn't even thought about that, but yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm a bit shy.
Okay, fair enough. And so the best place to find you is TikTok.
Best place to find me is TikTok. Yes, definitely.
What are you doing on there?
I just share things that I think will be useful about like my experience traveling, things that people might not have thought of, or like things I've learned, or like cool places I've been. I just try to keep it like lighthearted and share like, I don't know, raw thoughts as they come up.
Yeah.
My overall aim with all of this is just to like, if someone's on the fence about doing it, or if someone knows that they want to do it but they don't know how, I want to kind of be that like that push of like, you can do it, and because I've done it, and like this is everything that I know about how I've done it. So like I hope this helps you to get yourself out there.
Okay. There's another TikTok that I follow who does a similar thing, is While She's Away. Have you seen that?
Oh my god. Actually, yes, Deanne. Oh, okay. So
Jenny.
crazy that you mentioned her. I am going to be on her podcast. I did an interview with her a couple weeks ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
I guess when this comes out, that will also be out. That comes out in November. So amazing. And we actually connected through TikTok
yeah,
and just immediately became like huge fans of each other because
yeah.
like
You do the
we
same thing, I think. Yeah,
we do the same thing and we also just have the same like personality. We're also the same age. We have very similar backstories. And like the craziest thing is I'm going to Serbia on Wednesday to see family and stuff.
yeah.
And she is currently volunteering kind of close to the border of
She
Croatia and
is.
Serbia.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
we're gonna meet up. We're actually gonna meet up next Saturday.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's brilliant because she's quite raw. So you get to
Yeah.
see not just the upside, but the reality of it, of that type of
Yes.
travel. I guess is why she's really popular, and I guess why you're really popular is because not much bullshitting. You know, you can sugarcoat a lot of things on social media, but I guess because it's so raw and it's so true, a lot of people
Yeah.
are checking you guys out. Oh, that's
Thank you.
interesting.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's true. Like, I mean, I grew up in the time where Instagram was at its height, like what, 2015, 16, it was
Yeah.
really like manicured travel photos, like filters. Everyone was selling a bloody preset pack, you know what I mean? And it's just kind of like this aspirational thing that I think young people now see through that bullshit and they're just like,
Yeah.
don't like this. Like, I mean, the rise of Be Real is a perfect example of this just not being it anymore. And I think that I never want people to leave my page thinking that like it's this manicured life, that it's like super glamorous, that it's
Mm.
like, I don't know, I got it all together and like it's just effortless. And no, it's ugly.
No.
Like
Yeah.
catch me with
Yeah.
knotted hair, sweating my ass out in an airport with like, you know what I mean? My toothbrush in my back pocket. Like it's not cute. But
Yeah,
it's
and
worth
I
it.
think Instagram's on its way down because of that. They're trying to go to
Absolutely.
videos and they're way too late and they're a bit shit at that.
Yeah, definitely.
But okay, so where can people find you on social media and or website?
TikTok mainly, yes.
Yeah, Jetset Julia.
Yes.
I'll put the link in the show notes so people can access that. And I guess if people want to check out your first 3 episodes of your podcast, they can. That's on Spotify, right? Apple Podcasts.
Yes.
They can if they want.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
It's on Spotify and I think Apple Podcast as well.
yeah. So you can check that out. I'll put the link in the show notes for that as well. And do you have a website?
Not yet.
Oh yeah, it's on the list. Okay, cool.
I have the domain. It's jetsetterjulia.com, but there's nothing on it yet.
Cool. Awesome. We'll keep an eye out for that. And yeah, I'll put all the links in the show notes, so that'd be cool.
Cool. Thank you.
We're going to finish the episode. I'm going to bark some questions at you. This has probably been, before we get to that, one of the best conversations I've had in terms of candidly speaking about the full-time travel lifestyle.
Wow.
I don't get many people who come on who are actually full-timers per se. Like people might take 6 months out and talk about that trip, which is absolutely brilliant. Then they're back to like real life, which is absolutely fine. We get that 6-month experience where they went, what they did, who they saw. But there's not many people who come on and you don't have like one time. You're just doing it now as we speak. Like you're going to Patagonia next week or a couple of weeks. You're going to Serbia on Wednesday. Like it's one after the other, right? So I've not had too many conversations like that. So it's been quite cool to hear from your point of view what it's been like.
Thank you. I appreciate that a lot.
So and it's been really good fun. I've learned a lot.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I've really enjoyed the conversation too. I love that we went on like a slightly political tangent. I love that we were talking about like the state of society at the moment and where it's going. And I could talk about that for hours as we've done.
That's why I'm a long form.
Thank you for
podcast.
that and all these helpful questions.
Yeah. I guess that's why people tune in for those conversations, right? Okay, quick fire travel questions finishes the episode. These are your favorite travel things. You don't know what's coming. I left that on purpose. So we're going to start with. Hey, yeah. Just a quick one before we carry on with the travel questions. I just want to say there are many ways to support this podcast. You can buy me a coffee and help support the podcast with $5. Or you can go to my merch store with the affiliate link with TeePublic, where there's plenty of merch available to buy, such as t-shirts, jumpers, hoodies, and also some children's clothing. Thirdly, which is free, you can also rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, or Good Pods. Also, you can find me on social media on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. Simply just search for Winging It Travel Podcast, and you'll find me displaying all my social media content for traveling, podcast, and other stuff. Thank you. It's travel question time. The top 3 favorite countries that you travel to.
Top 3 favorite countries. Okay, Argentina is one of them for sure.
Yeah.
What else? I'm gonna say Germany, just because I'm obsessed with Berlin. I've been to Berlin several times for longer periods of time and love it. But I know everyone says it's not representative of Germany, but we're gonna go with Germany.
Yeah.
And then the third one, I'm gonna say Greece. Yeah, because it's a special place for me, with the story I told you about Crete, and I actually
Mm.
ended up going back the next year and spending 6 months of the pandemic in the same place. So it has a very like sentimental value to me, and I see myself maybe even settling down in Crete one day. So I'm gonna go with
Ah,
Greece.
interesting.
Mm.
Okay, that's awesome. And three countries that you've not traveled to that you would love to travel to next.
Oh, easier to answer. Oh my God. Okay, Mongolia, number one. Can't wait to go to
Yeah.
Mongolia. uh, oh, I have so many. Okay, Mongolia is one of them. Colombia is one of them. I'm
Yeah.
very excited for Colombia.
Yeah. Top five,
And
Colombia.
yeah, definitely. And Lebanon is also up there. I would love to go to Lebanon.
Yeah. Someone else said Lebanon the other day. Okay. And if you could pick one country in the world to live in that you've not lived in before, where would you live?
That's really hard to say because it's all based on assumption, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I would assume something South American. I don't
Oh
know,
yeah.
maybe. Yeah, maybe Colombia.
Mm. Do you know what? I think exactly the same. Not been, but I think I'd like it there, and I think I'd like to live there for a bit.
Yeah, I have a few friends that have been in the last year or two, and they all have very good things to say. And I mean, I know obviously it's not Argentina, it's not the same. They're two completely different countries on opposite ends of the
Mm.
continent. But like, um, I think there are some things in common across the continent. This like liveliness, this like love of life, this very social, very community based. Again, all assumptions, but I mean, the music is fire too. They know how to party. Like, there's just so many things. The food is going to be amazing. Like, I think I would really enjoy it.
Okay. And what about a favorite beach that you've seen?
Ooh. Okay, favorite beach, favorite beach. The first one that came to mind, I'm so boring. It's Crete again. The first one that came to mind was this place called Agio Farago, which is, I think it's in the south of Crete. And you can only get there. So you have to drive, like all good beaches in Greece. They're
Yeah.
incredibly difficult to get to, right? Like
Yeah.
you have to drive for ages, and then you drive onto a dirt road, and you're on a dirt road going down like a canyon for like half an hour. And then you park, and then you have to hike half an hour through a gorge, which is lined with flowers if you go in the right time of year. It's so beautiful. And then you end up at a tiny little bay with the bluest water you've ever seen, and like no one else is there because who would do that? Who would know that it's there?
Yeah.
And so it's wonderful. You can spend the day there. It's gorgeous.
Okay. And what about do you drink coffee?
I love coffee.
Cool. So if you can pick one city in the world to drink coffee and watch the world go by, where would you sit and drink your coffee?
And watch the world go by?
Mm.
Oh, this is a good question. Um, Sit and watch the world go by. Maybe Istanbul.
Ooh.
I haven't been
Yeah.
yet. I haven't been there yet, but
It's been a popular answer.
I can just imagine that it's quite the intersection of all kinds of different
Oh yeah.
cultures, places, people. Like it would just be really cool to see what is going on. There's also cats everywhere, and there's also, from what I've heard and seen from friends of mine that have been, like lots of like live music, or like
Mm.
just like life is in the street. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
whereas like in Europe, life is in the house, and it's just kind of like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that would be a cool place to just kind of soak it up. Also, I love Turkish coffee. Like in Serbia and in Greece, we make coffee the same way that the Turks do.
Yeah.
So that's also like a little piece of home.
Ah,
Yeah,
that's my next question. Your favorite coffee in terms of a country? Are you going to go Turkish coffee?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's how I make my coffee in the mornings.
Fair
People
enough.
come to me with like filtered coffee. I'm like, no, none of this shit. I need my turbo. I need my nitro power up.
Yeah, love that. Love that.
Yeah,
Yeah, two popular answers in that question are Italian coffee and Turkish coffee. Yeah, that's popular too.
nice.
Okay. And what about a favorite trek or walk?
Favorite trek. Oh, it's also sentimental. I mean, it has to be Patagonia. Who is gonna go to Patagonia and not say that Patagonia is their favorite? There was this one walk that I did in Patagonia, which wasn't even a walk because it's not a marked trail.
Right.
Basically from this popular camping ground that you can get to. What a lot of people do is they camp in this campground, and then they hike up to like the famous photo of Patagonia is like the three peaks with like the lake in front of it, like
Yeah.
the what's it called? Laguna de los Tres, I think it's what it's called.
Okay.
Um,
I'll send the image. Yeah.
so from that campground, you can go in a different direction, and you get to a viewpoint where you can see a different lake with like mountains behind it and a glacier and all this. But when I was at the viewpoint, I could see people at the actual lake itself. And I was like,
Mm.
okay, so it's possible to get there because I can see that person there. So I went off to try to find how to get there. And there was no path. It was just kind of like go in the general direction until you find it. So it was lots of clambering over boulders, lots of like crossing rivers, and like trying to find the way.
Wow.
And then eventually we did. And then there was even a sign that said like danger, do not advance, because it's like falling boulders and stuff. And we were like, well, we've seen people here, so like it must be not that bad. So yeah, went up all the way up to the lake, and then just kind of like sat on this big rock and just like stared at the glacier for like 2 hours and talked about life, and then came back. So it was Very good.
Okay. Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
And this next question, I think I might know the answer, but I'm going to say anyway. Favorite city?
Ooh, can I give two?
Yeah, go on in.
Berlin and Buenos Aires.
Okay, cool. I thought Berlin might be the answer, but I think Buenos Aires from what you said. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What about a favorite party place? Where's a good party?
Such not creative answers on my part. Favorite party place? Oh, I don't know. Oh, I don't know. There's so many different kinds of parties and like different parts of the world party in different ways. Probably Argentina just generally.
Yeah.
Because Berlin obviously is famous for nightlife and stuff, but I feel like it's all quite samey after a while.
Yeah.
Diehard Berliners are going to hear this and be like, what is she talking about? But I just feel like in Argentina, there's so much more variety in the types of parties because there's a huge techno scene in Argentina too. They actually look up to Berlin a lot. So you can get that there, but then you also get all the traditional, you get like cumbia, you get all the tango parties, you get like quarteto, and you get like all kinds of, more commercial stuff, and then like their own Argentinian trap. And there's just a lot of diversity. So you can see a lot of different kinds of things. And I like my options, so I'm going to go with that one.
Cool. And what a favorite landmark? Can be man-made or nature.
Edinburgh is the first thing that came into mind. So probably Arthur's Seat in Edinburgh.
Arthur's Seat? Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Just feels like home.
You get 3 for this one. So, favorite countries, cuisine or food?
Perfect, because I have 3 ready to go. Mexican, Lebanese, and Thai.
Awesome. Love that. 3 good foods there. What has been a country that you traveled to that's been the best value for your money?
Ooh, best value for money. I mean, Indonesia. It's going to have to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And a few more questions. A favorite high adrenaline activity that you've done on your travels?
My life is a high adrenaline activity. High adrenaline activity. Okay, I haven't done it yet, but my boyfriend, we've said that we both want to jump out of a plane, and both of us have never done it, and both of us are terrified to do it, but both of us all really want to do it.
Skydive.
So this is waiting for me. Skydive, yeah, this is waiting for me when I go back.
Oh, so good. I've done it twice, and it's on my list to go again. Yeah, you got to do it.
You done it twice? How was it?
Yeah. Oh, it was that good the first time. I went second time.
Yeah, true that. True that.
There's 2 parts to it, right? There's like the free fall, 30 seconds to a minute. You're just falling through the air. You don't even realize how fast you're going. And just like get twizzled around and like just breathe through your nose. Don't breathe through your mouth because you can't, because you're falling at such a height and so fast.
Okay, good tip. Thank you.
Number tip, breathe through your nose when you're free diving. So you can twizzle around, see all the views, clear day, unbelievable. And then when he pulls the parachute, you got this like serene, just like gliding down to the ground. It's a cool experience. Like people say that or bungee jump. I'm like, well, bungee jump lasts 10 seconds. I'm like, fuck that. I want to do like.
I'm also terrified of the whiplash of bungee jump, and I also
yeah.
And I'm also like, I feel like it'd be even more scary because you have some kind of concept of how high up you are. So you're like, oh, I'm really high up. Oh my God. But in the plane, you kind of can't understand how high you are. So it doesn't feel so scary. This is my theory, at least. But I have thought of something else in this chit chat. I have done paragliding, which I imagine is similar to the second half of the skydive. Paragliding was cool, but it wasn't enough adrenaline for me. I did it, and I was like, oh, that was it.
Right. Okay. That's on my top list to do is paragliding. Yeah.
I mean, I would do it. It was really fun. Like you get to run off a cliff. How cool is that? Like it was really cool. But I think my real answer for this question of things that I have already done is go-karting.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have a go-kart. Yeah, that's good fun. Yeah. That bit of competitiveness trying to win. Yeah.
100%. Aries, baby.
Okay, and the last question for the whole podcast is words of advice or wisdom could you pass on to someone who is maybe considering to go traveling, whether that's short-term, medium or long-term, and is not quite sure how to do it or why they should go? What would you pass on as the reason that they should go?
Oh, because you are going to become a more empathetic and compassionate person. Your eyes are going to be open to so much more than you could have imagined. And that sounds so cliche. And like, it's a kind of a vapid statement just like this, but like, you're going to see different facets to the world. Your faith in humanity is going to be restored. Like, there's nothing quite like it. Like, it's kind of an uncanny valley. You feel like you're living normal life, but like not. Like, because all the things you do are the same. You still wake up, you still eat breakfast, you still go for walks, you still go to sleep. It's all like normal life, but in like another dimension. And you're going to grow really fast as a person. You're going to become much more resilient. And I think the most important is you're going to trust yourself so much more. And this will translate in everything in life. You're going to have so much more confidence in your relationships. You're going to have so much more confidence, like negotiating for jobs. You're going to have so much more confidence in everything because you start to trust yourself rather than trust systems around you. And this is priceless.
Yeah, that's a great comment, that. Yeah, you trust yourself over the systems around you. Yeah, I love that. Okay. Julia, thanks for coming on the podcast. It's been a great
Thank you so much for
chat
having
and really
me.
good fun. Yeah, it's been awesome.
I really enjoyed it too. Thanks so much for having me.
And thanks for sharing your wisdom and your lifestyle and where you're off to next and all your travel adventures. I really appreciate it. And no doubt, I think you will probably come on again at some point. And hopefully it'll be in person. We can do it in person one day. Maybe that'd be pretty cool.
I would love it. Put it out there. Put it to the universe. Make it happen.
Yeah. Okay, thanks so much. Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to my Winging It Travel podcast episode today. You can find me on Instagram at James Hammond Travel or Winging It Travel Podcast. You can search for both. I release weekly clips of this podcast episode, as well as photos from the last 8 to 10 years of my travels. You can also follow me on TikTok, Facebook and Pinterest by searching Winging It Travel Podcast. I do release daily content to do with travel and the podcast throughout the week. Also check out my website, jameshammond.org. There's content about myself, my travels, and there's also a newsletter sign up as well as a contact form. Finally, please rate and review the podcast on Podchaser. This is my platform of choice. Alternatively, you can rate this on Apple or wherever you get your podcasts from. This really helps the podcast gain a bit of traction for the future in terms of guests and content. And I'm glad to see that you guys are listening out there, reviewing it and enjoying the content so far. Stay safe, stay humble, keep listening, keep travelling, and I'll catch you soon. Cheers, James.